It's Sunday afternoon. Typically it would be Monday, but it's not because we're in a special time of the tournament. It's the qualifiers. There's a few more games to play. Lots of people entering the tournaments. And so we are here with week 2 of the North American qualifiers. I am Rainy, your host for today. And that there is Exodium and Aya Senpai, here to help us commentate, cast the games, provide professional insight into what happens in these mystical Shadowverse games. I don't know why I'm introducing the game this
Very
way,
mystical. Very mystical.
Yes, sometimes it is unclear as to why these interactions happen. But we have a lot of tournament play to look forward to, not just today, but over the course of the next few months. And we're kicking it off with the qualifiers, as I mentioned before. 3 weeks of open registration double elimination bracket tournaments, best of 3, 3-deck 1-band format. The top 2 players from each of these qualifiers advance into the actual season. And so we've had 2 players from North America qualify in last week, and we're going to find 2 more this week. And each of those players are going to move on to the Contenders Cup, which is qualification into the World Grand Prix, and then the season standard, that is invitational, the invitational phase, and then the regional finals point. So there's quite a few things happening. Basically, the World Grand Prix is kind of the big target for a lot of these players here going to Tokyo and competing there. But so far, we're just in the qualifiers. We're just in the early entry point. I don't know who else is going to join. Maybe it's going to be previous Season 2 competitors. Maybe it's going to be new competitors. North America has a large pool of players to choose from. So who knows? Who knows? Exodium, what clan, who do you think, either from Shadow Nexus, Mana Surge, or Disastra, who do you think is going to do the best in terms of qualifying into these tournaments?
Well, I gotta say, from looking at the bracket from this tournament, Disastra's doing quite well. Last night, Sheepy was talking about how they do this tournament every week to prepare for the tournament, and they are all on very similar decks, especially one of them, which we'll get into once we get in a little later. But they did their testing this week, and they made it. So I would say Disastra has the best chance.
Disastra certainly seems like they are stepping it up. Of course, they're a very big team with a lot of very veteran players, but let's see what they stand to win if they make it through to the end of the qualifier tournament. Today, 30,000 vials and qualification into the invitationals if you are in first place. Second place gets 10,000 vials as well as a spot in the invitationals. Third, fourth, 4,000, fifth through 8th, 3,500, and 9th through 16th, 1,500. That is actually surprisingly hard to say. I don't know if you guys, maybe I'll get one of you guys to do that. It is actually very difficult to say. They will move on to the invitationals, and that's going to be the top 12 players from the North American or the European region if you were watching yesterday's show. And that means they are going to be playing out in group stages. The top 6 from each of the group, or rather the top 3 from each of the groups, being the top 6 overall, will move on to the regional finals, and 4th from each group gets $250 but does not move on. So we will bid adieu to them. And then in the regional finals, this is the last point in the season. The first place winner in total gets a grand champion of the Starforged Legends season of the Shadowverse Open and wins $6,500. Second place, $3,000. Third place, $2,500. Fourth is $1,500, and fifth and sixth, $950. That's a lot of prize money. That's a lot of prize money.
A lot of smackers. Lots of smackers.
A lot of smackers. Aya Senpai, why don't you enter these tournaments and win that prize dollars? What would you do? What would you do for the Shadow Nexus if you got $6,500? What would that look like?
It would just go back into community tournaments, man.
Yeah.
That's all that would happen.
You know what I think would be the best to do is to donate to particular streams, particular personal streams. Like, for example, maybe one that is the URL of Rainiest Day, maybe. Just,
We check out a lot of community streams on the regular, and we have been known to subscribe and donate and that kind of stuff. So that does go out there. Yeah, absolutely.
That's Shadow Nexus for you. They are the lifeblood of the new players and the young players of the Shadowverse community. So, with that being said, let's take a look at the bracket and see what the tournament has to offer today. Now, Exodia mentioned a little bit, but Disastra is kind of making a big run in the tournament today. DV8 is a very popular player in the scene, been around for a long time. Belaine, who previously on EXG, one of the strongest players, I think, on the team, had a lot of good tournament performances. And Eplikas, who I'm actually not super familiar with. Disastrous Eplikas is going to be kind of a new name for me. And of course, the rest of the competitors are yet to be discovered because they are still playing the tournament right now. They've been playing all day today, and we are only entering in at the final points of the tournament. So, the first match that's going to be up, Team Kill. Well, not really kill because they're not going to be eliminated quite yet,
Right.
but it is a team fight, DV8 versus Belaine. What do you guys think? What are the decks that they're fielding? And maybe Exodium, if you could talk a little bit more about kind of Disastra's tournament strategy today.
So what it looks like is they all brought mid-sword today. So all of them went away from the aggro sword. They decided, you know what, aggro sword, I'd rather beat it than join it and basically make my decks a lot harder to ban out. And they all decided on a very, very similar mid-sword list to handle that, which I really like, and you'll definitely get to see it. They all decided on PDK, but all of them have different variants of it. We see ramp PDK, we see aggro PDK, we see a mix of aggro / ramp PDK. So they're all over the place there. As far as the matchup goes, this is really going to come down to how much they've tested against each other's extra deck. Belaine having Dirt Rune and DV8 having Neutral Forest. Which one of those really competes better out of the three? And realistically, it's just down to their testing. They know better than I do at this point which matchup is better for them, so I'll let them decide.
Senpai, it looks like you have some approvals for things like mid-sword, but you have some disapprovals for things like PDK. What in particular do you like about mid-sword? And I believe we are getting the match ready to go, so once these players get started, we'll jump into the lobby. But what do you think is kind of the benefit of mid-sword and its advantages over aggro sword?
Well, mid-sword actually does incredibly well in the aggro sword matchup. It has a lot of rush followers that it can just come out and just clear the board, keep it clean, and they can have things left over. So an aggro sword doesn't want to trade with them, obviously. They're trying to just go face the entire time. So mid-sword is very good at putting aggro sword on the defensive, which is exactly what it doesn't want.
And
the only reason I went like
wards,
this to PDK,
wards.
yeah, many wards. And the only reason I went like this to PDK is because I expect everyone to ban it. So
everybody got banned PDK.
Yeah.
Poor Prime Dragon Keeper. She saw the light of day for just a little bit, and now nobody's friends with her anymore.
Yeah, I expect everybody to ban that.
Right. So, we're going to be loading into the game here. DV8 versus Belaine. How familiar are you guys with these two players? I mean, they've been around competing for a long time. They must have come across some of your tournaments as well at some point in time. But in your guys' impression, is there one that's further ahead than the other? Or do you think this is going to be an even match kind of player skill decision-making wise?
For me, I'm very familiar with DV8. DV8 has been playing in many tournaments. Not so familiar with Belaine, even though I have spoken with him a few times. But DV8 is an incredibly good and consistent player, and he hasn't really been playing as much like in the last, I guess, couple of months. But it's actually really good to see him back.
Absolutely. Like we used to see DV8 all the time in our chats, in all of our community tournaments, all that kind of stuff. He always puts up good numbers. We even did an interview with him once where he said, he's a very competitive player. He really likes taking his time and building his decks and playing. So I'm sure he's very well tuned for this meta, and it shows, right? He's at the top of the winner's bracket, ready to go.
So we got Dirt Rune versus Neutral Forest. Now, this matchup, I think, kind of comes down to the amount of burn that Dirt Rune can do, because, and it also comes down to like Mutagenic Bolt and or Calamitous Curse against the Mutagen Beast, because if they don't have an answer to Mutagen Beast, the game just kind of gets locked up, and thanks for playing.
Right.
Next game.
Right. A lot of it has to do with Dirt Rune ignoring what Neutral Rune does for a long period of time, like trying not to trade, trying to go face as much as possible. The big wrenches are, of course, Aaron, like we see in the hand of DV8, and like you said, Mutagenic Bolt to kind of get through those big boards and just deal extra damage. So this is the matchup I was kind of talking about beforehand, too. This is kind of like the wild card matchup. So whoever wins this, I think, actually has a really good chance to take the entire match here.
Well, we do see, as we already said, that PDK was banned on both sides, and we see that
Yeah, they know that.
They know. They're like, hey, man, I don't want to fight that, bro. Like, it doesn't matter what your configuration is. I don't want to fight that. So,
if there was any good warning, all of the Disaster players brought PDK. So far, we've seen all the Disaster players ban PDK. So just warning, guys. Just a warning.
And PDK. Okay. But we do see that both have their mid swords. So we're going to actually get to see that. You know, we might even get to see the mirror. You know?
That's right.
I think that'll be really interesting to see.
And like I said, they each have like slight tech choices that differ from each other. So they each have their own style, and that's really important for newer players. Even if your team, especially in this kind of a game where you have access to 40 cards, you don't have to worry about your play points, you're always going to get one during your turn. Making a configuration of a deck the way you know how to win with it is more important than just having the best quote-unquote version of the deck more often than not.
Now, I want to point out something that DV8 did. DV8 traded his carrot to get his carrot back into his hand after playing the Pure-Hearted Singer so that he could have enough cards to play Beauty and the Beast next turn. And as we can see in Blaine's hand, he doesn't actually have an answer to Beauty and the Beast. So a slam of Beauty and the Beast and pre-Evo, if Blaine doesn't draw an answer in that next turn, he's going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yep. A lot of trouble. And we do see that there is some semblance of burn for Blaine, but is it really going to be able to carry him through?
Well, the burn won't work against Beauty and the Beast. So, and he didn't really do a lot of damage before now. So it's not like he's going to be able to just, you know, start burning away and ignore the Beauty and the Beast. Like, he's like something he has to deal with. He has to be
Right.
able to get something to get it because, you know, if DV8, if that goes unchecked, wrap it up. Next match.
Wrap it up. That's right. We might just see Blaine doing the thing that you don't want to be doing when you're trying to pressure your opponent and play defensively, especially against, like, if you have to use all of your Evo points and all of your followers just to run into Beauty and the Beast so you don't die to it, what's going to be left over to actually finish off your opponent? And we see that, you know, DV8's still at 18. It's not like his life's been pressured that much yet, and we're already on Aaron turn. You know what I mean? So it's going to get harder and harder for Blaine here.
Well, one of the things about Burn Rune that can be incredibly difficult to deal with is simply, when you're playing against it, I mean, is simply the fact that they just melt your face off. You know, it's Burn Rune, you know?
Right.
It's Burn Rune. It's called Burn Rune
Melt
for a
it
reason.
right off.
You know?
Terminator
Melt
style.
right
Throw him
off.
in the lava pit.
Yeah, it's just the whole face just gets melted off. But
That's
we
right.
do see that DV8 has heal in hand with the Aarons, should he need it. We also see that Beauty and the Beast may not necessarily be the best line of play. We do
Mostly
actually
because this is going to be the easiest turn, right? For Blaine to be able to answer it. Still has an Evo point left, still has followers in play, but decides to go with it anyway.
Yeah, this is what I find just a little bit questionable. We do know that the Conjure Guardian is in hand, so he will be able to Evo the Conjure Guardian and trade his Alchemist and the Guardian into the Beauty and the Beast to get rid of it. And then, like, what does DV8 do from this? He just, you know, just starts filling the board back up. You know what I mean?
Interesting. He did not go for that.
Wow. I wonder why.
Choosing, I guess he knows that there's no way for that Conjure Guardian to actually get blown past by the Beauty and the Beast, or at least he's hoping not. This is right before turn 8, before you get the extra Evo point back from Aaron. So if he doesn't have a removal spell immediately for this, like Elf Twins Assault, then he's going to have to ram his Beauty and the Beast into it, and it's going to give even more damage and presence for Blaine. So I actually really like that play. It's a gamble, but it's going to pay off here.
Yeah, it does end up paying off. He rolled the dice and, you know, rolled well. This is really good. Well, we do know, and what I'm actually finding interesting in DV8's list, I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there, is this Elf Girl Liza.
Yeah. Very different approach.
Yeah. Yes.
And I like it. We've been talking about Elf Girl Liza a lot. Elf Girl Liza is just really helpful against every deck. It's really good against PDK or Dragon in general. It's really good against Elf Twins Assault. It's really good against pretty much everything. Dirt Rune, you know what I mean? Like, it just lets your followers stay in play and makes your opponent do a lot more to finish what you have off. And we see Goblin Mount Demons. So tons of wards.
Goblin Mount.
Yeah, tons of anti-damage stuff. Like, this is great. I like this.
slipped up.
Yeah, he's basically said, I'm not dying to aggro today. One of the problems that Neutral Force does tend to have is that it does kind of suffer against those aggro decks on those turns you want to play that Beauty and Beast. You can't against those aggro decks because they're just going to ignore it and hit you in the face. So we're actually seeing right now an example of a time where he wouldn't want to play a Beauty and the Beast if he had one.
Right.
That is. This is a perfect example of a time he wouldn't want to play it. His opponent has 4 power guys on board. He's at 8. I love the Liza play right here.
These are the top decks that Belain needs here. Mutagenic Bolts, Dance of Deaths, nothing yet. He's not going to have a lot more time to get them because Deviate's going to start being able to trade with this board very effectively.
Not only that, but even if Belain managed to get something like a Master Mage Levy or whatever, he wouldn't have been able to kill any of the board because of Liza.
That's right. So only big kill spells would have worked there.
Oh, and another Beauty and the Beast, but he won't. He'll get the buff, I believe, or is it no? He gets the resistance.
Protection.
He doesn't get the buff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is perfectly fine. Angel of the Word cleaning up Master Mage Levy, being able to clean up the rest of the board. This is a great turn.
Yeah, Belain's hand's looking pretty bad right now. It's sitting on 2 sigils. Feels bricks, man.
But as we know, Wizardess of Oz is this ever-present thing that Dirt Rune can draw into and just completely change the course of the game. But he's going to need to do it soon, because that Beauty and the Beast is basically saying, with any other followers in play, you're going to be dead in just about 3 attacks. So that's your clock.
Well, unfortunately, this Dance of Death does not feel great because he can't take out the 1 card that he needs to kill.
Right.
So it's like, well, do I hold it? I don't think so. I think you do have to kill something, but
I think you do. If nothing else, just to preserve the clock and to get cards out of your hand to make Wizardess of Oz just that much better.
Yeah. And just another sigil, of course, you just never want to see that. I know those feels. I'm a Dirt Rune player.
Yep.
Yeah. It feels terrible. And this is kind of one of those times where, Deviate doesn't want to overcommit to the board because, again, Mutagenic Bolt is a thing. So if he overcommits to the board, he can end up killing himself.
That's right. Got to be careful. That's the only thing he realistically has to play around right now. Wizardess of Oz, you can't really play around, right? Like, whatever they get, they get. So play around what you can.
So just on a little bit of a dirt topic, I know that you're kind of like off and on about dirt and all that, but
Always.
my question to you is, what type of card would you want to make to help dirt along if you were to make a card for dirt?
Well, I want to see dirt go in a direction away from aggro. Like, I'm not a big fan of playing cards like Piercing Rune, Demonic Strikes, and things like that. I'd rather it go a little bit more defensive. And I realistically think they have the board control options they need. They just need to shore up, like, their mid-game package. Like, Halo Golem's good, Carl's good, but you don't really have a lot of other tools in those slots whatsoever. Right. Gingerbread House doesn't feel very good. Price of Magic doesn't feel very good. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of this early to mid stuff that just doesn't feel good, and I think that's where it needs to shore up. Its endgame is great. You've got Professor of Taboos, Calamitous Curse, you know what I mean, Master Mage Levi, so many good things at the top end. Give me some more stuff in the mid game. But here we see Belain didn't draw what he needed to draw, Deviate doing what he needed to do and finishing out the game.
Yep, it's right. As just like we said earlier, Beauty and the Beast, man. You know, it's almost like they always have that second one. You always hope they don't. And then they jam the second one, and you're like, "Oh, I just got rid of the first one."
And I just drew my Dance of Death, and I can't kill it.
I can't kill it. Oh, yeah, that feels terrible.
Terrible.
Right, well, we're gonna get to see that mid-sword.
That's right. So mid-sword versus Dirt Rune. I actually think that Dirt Rune has a slight advantage here because Sword doesn't have any healing. Like, those errands really came into play last game for Deviate. Sword does have the wards, but if there is a consistent burn out of Belain's deck, then he won't be able to actually heal back up out of lethal range late in the game. So this is an interesting match.
Well, the healing thing you mentioned is definitely prevalent here. And not only that, but Master Mage Levy is incredibly strong against Sword.
Yes.
all forms of sword. It is not
Right.
just
They try to
aggro
board
sword.
fill. Master Mage Levi does exactly the opposite of that and board clears.
Yeah.
So, yes. Very good. And we get to see one of your favorite cards from Sword right now.
Bladed Hedgehog, right? Bladed Hedgehog. So for everyone who doesn't know, Bladed Hedgehog, whenever enemy follower is destroyed, it gets +1/+0. So when you combine it with cards like Blitz Lancer, Geno, even Shield of Flame, Whole Soul Swing, stuff like that, he gets really big and really difficult to kill.
Yep, and we get to see a nice little... Oh, okay. Decides to not trade here. Interesting.
I think him not trading is fine. Yeah, I think it's fine. He
It
still
would have protected
gets-
his Mars, is what I think the only consideration is, but I guess he doesn't really care because Bladed Hedgehog keeps getting pumped anyway, so either follower that stays in play gets advantage, so not a huge loss there.
This would be a great Lux turn, I think. Just just play it now. He's under no pressure at the moment. So, I mean, unless he wants to start pushing damage right this second, he's under no pressure. He can, he just decided to do that, and I guess he's going to just push for the damage. Seems good.
Only reason I think that's the choice is A, Bladed Hedgehog's in play. If that was not the follower in play, I don't know if that would have been the play. But he also has already Council of Card Knights, Albert, and Mars to kind of push into the later games, so I don't think he's really worried about the cards in hand at the moment.
That's fair. That's fair. For me, it's more like hedging against Levy. The Master Mage Levy.
Sure.
I mean.
Of course.
But hey, that's why he's playing and I'm commentating.
That's right. Circa January, good old Levi Piercing Rune doing its good board clear phenomenon that it does.
Even after the change, it's still good, man.
Right. People were clamoring for Levi and Piercing Rune to get changed for a long time. They finally did change Piercing Rune before it actually got reduced to 1 cost instead of 2. So even more potent. You could play like several Piercing Runes and Levi's and possibly even the Crimson Sorcery all in the same turn. It was
brutal,
quite a
dude.
beast.
Yeah, that was so brutal. You're like, where did my board go? I just worked so hard up to this point. Turn 4, my board is gone. It was like
I took 4.
Yeah, I took 4, my board is gone, and I can't do anything about that. I got wasted an Evo point, they take out their Levy, because I can't do anything, and I can't push any damage. He just felt terrible.
And my opponent didn't even attack me this turn. How is this? What's going on?
Right, and they didn't even attack me. It felt miserable. So, we are going to get to see that Master Mage Levy, or even Mutagenic Bolt put in some work. He can't. Yeah. See, this is actually why I really feel like Lux would have been better earlier, because he can't really get the quote-unquote full value out of it that he would have gotten if he had played it on the turn 4 and when he wasn't really under any pressure.
Absolutely right. And we get to see Mars in full effect here on both power and defense here, strength and defense.
Mars is a card that I wanted to see played. Like for a while now. Goodbye board, by the way. I wanted to see Mars.
By the way.
I wanted to see Mars played for so long, and I'm actually glad that we could see it now. Like the people are moving in the direction of that. Not only the counter sword, but I don't like. And that actually kind of informs to their ban, right? They know that mid sword's bad against PDK, so they just ban it. So that's actually really smart. I like that. I just thought about that.
One other inclusion too, Staircase in mid-sword, pretty potent. Like, Sword doesn't have a lot of card draw opportunities, and Staircase is very cheap. And mid-sword specifically doesn't play any other 1-drops. So it kind of gives you this nice little hedge that if you can't really capitalize in the mid-game, you'll have a lot of late-game options. And the late-game options for Sword are really good. You've got Alberts, you've got Fangblade Slayer, you've got Alwita's Command, you know what I mean? Like, you've got a ton of stuff. Even Round Table Assembly now, just to push out so much value. So
talk about a card I have so much soul toward right now. Round Table Assembly.
It's a salt-inducing card. We won't see it this game, but of course you guys have seen it before, where it puts 2 Juliets into play with an Ephemera in play, and then you know how that goes. That old song.
Yeah. It's like, yep, we heard this one before.
I really like the interaction between Geno and Staircase as well. Like, you get 3 followers that die almost immediately because they're so small, and get that Staircase to pop really quickly. So very, very nice little interaction. And I think that Deviate's actually in a really bad spot here. Not Deviate, but Belane's in a really bad spot here because so much card advantage, already has Albert, and Belain really hasn't done that much yet.
No, he hasn't. He's basically just been hanging on by a thread throughout the majority of this game. And unfortunately, it's not looking much better. It's really not. He does have access to the mutagenic bolt, but do you really want to be playing mutagenic bolt on a turn that you know? Well, he's playing it. Wow. On a turn that you know that your opponent has an Albert, or could have an Albert, or might have an Albert because that just popped.
I really like this play because A, he's ahead right now. Obviously, we know that Albert's going to change things, but it gives him the best opportunity to top deck into a win. The reason I say that is because he gets to use his Evo on offense, the Flame Rats will deal damage, and he has a Dance of Death in hand. So if, again, he draws something like a Wizardess of Oz, he can really push through and maybe win the game. But we'll see.
That's fair. But right now, it's not looking so hot. No pun intended on the fact that they're called Flame Rats. But it's not looking that great right now. And we do see that DV8 has yet another Albert in hand. So in the event that this one doesn't do it, which it won't, he's got another one on lock.
This one won't do it, but because of the way Belain played, he basically pressured all of the damage to go to his board instead of face. So even after this Albert hit play, the Dance of Death will remove it. The second Albert's not lethal, so it buys him some extra time, and he does have a Grimnir for next turn to kind of help clean up the board.
Well, he does have the Grimnir. I should love the Family Slayer player here. No reason to play that. No reason to play Albert right there. Yeah. And because this
also
is
sets
very
an anti-Grimnir Bureau to... Oh
wow, what a draw.
Here we
now
go.
Let's just see what he gets off of it. Nothing.
No!
That is not what you want.
Good old rune bricks.
Oh my goodness, that is not what you want. That's where you just put your hand in your head and you're just like...
That's when Wizardess takes you to Oz and you find all the munchkins instead of all the magic. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's exactly what just happened.
Yeah, that is... He knows he's dead too. He's like... Yeah, this is... Yeah, extra crispy dead, man. Yeah, just... Extra. He's finished. Albert is not how you want to lose, unfortunately. When you're fighting against swords, you just kind of have to expect it.
That's what it is. Deviate. What an amazing gameplay right there.
That was amazing gameplay on his part.
DV8 with the win on mid-sword. And we talked a little bit about mid-sword before we jumped into the broadcast, but it held its own against Burn Rune. What do you think are some of the big key cards that changes mid-sword in this particular expansion compared to the previous expansion? Because as we know, Burn Rune was one of the most popular decks in Wonderland Dreams, and mid-sword did not stick out as an option that was like, play that against Burn Rune, right? What do you think DV8 was able to leverage? What are the options if people want to emulate that we should be looking to for a mid-sword list?
Well, first off, Staircase to Paradise. If you're playing mid-sword and you're not playing Staircase to Paradise, you're messing up. Okay?
Yes.
There's also Mars. Mars is actually a really great addition to mid-sword. And the third card would be Lux Solar Lancer. It gives that deck even more draw on top of the Staircase to Paradise. So those would be the three cards that make the change.
Right, and we can see the card up here, Lux Solar Lancer. It says Fanfare. Put a random commander that costs 5 play points or less from your deck into your hand. And then for the enhanced cost, which is 4, then you can put a random commander that costs 6 or more. Right, at least 6 play points. So it gives you commanders on both ends. It's kind of like an upgraded Maid Leader in very many ways.
No, it's way better than Maid Leader.
Yeah, the basic reason is it's a 1-2 instead of a 1-1, right? We can easily see that. The next biggest reason is that the first time you play it, even on 2, you will get a commander that you can actually cast earlier in the game. Before, Maid Leader could fish out your front guard general early or something at the higher end of your curve, but now you get an on-curve card. If you play it for 4, not only do you get the on-curve commander, but then you also get another on-curve commander. You're not going to get 2 low-cost ones, you're not going to get 2 high-cost ones, so it lets you play your sword game a lot more efficiently, and it can draw 2 cards as opposed to Maid Leader's previous 1.
Right. So there you guys have it. Those are the 3 big cards that you would want to include in your Swordcraft deck to give you more consistency, more draw, and more effectiveness overall. But Deviate piloted that deck quite well. Let's take a look at the bracket and see where that puts him. He's going to be in the upper finals. Disastrous Deviate sends his own teammate Belaine down to the lower round 1. And that means that Belaine is going to have to fight a longer journey to see if he can make it into the season. And DV8 is only 1 match away from jumping into Season 3. So very well done on his part. The next match is going to be Disastrous Eplicus versus Crumjin, is a name that is familiar. Haven't really seen him play too much. And I actually heard that Eplicus, this is his first time placing highly in an NGE tournament. So assume that he's competed before, but hasn't really had fantastic performances, but might be his opportunity to make a big run for himself, and he could potentially, I mean, being on the winner's side on the semis, very close to making it into the season. So Eplicus might be just kind of this new player rising from kind of the crowd and stepping up to the plate here. Crumjin versus Eplicus. What do you guys think about the decks submitted? Now, we talked about how Disastrous had submitted very similar lists, so maybe it's key to just point out the particular differences in the PDK list in particular, and then maybe just their flavor list, as you might call it. What do they have, Exodium?
Sure. Well, one thing I actually want to highlight before we get right into it is that not only is Disaster in the top 4, but a lot of them actually beat other teammates to get to the top 4. You know what I mean? So, like, if one didn't make it, another one would have. Disaster is showing up today. This is just amazing. But I feel like Crumzian has a lot more experience behind him. We've seen Crumzian since, I don't know, February, something like that. The beginning of Shadowverse. The beginning of Shadow Nexus. He's been there. We actually tried to get him to join Shadow Nexus a long time ago, but he's like, I've got better teams to go to. We're like, all right. But I think, again, all their decks are very similar. The biggest thing is going to come down to how much did they actually test versus each of the individual decks that they're bringing. So I think each of them have a really good knowledge pool of what they need to be doing. It's just how much against a specific deck did they really test versus, the one tech deck that their opponent is bringing. So it's really going to come down to that. More testing.
I guess it'll be kind of Crumjin the dinosaur versus a new kid on a block, Eplicus.
Right. Exactly.
Eplicus has been around a lot. He's been around a while too. It's just, this is, I guess, as he said, the first time he's been doing really well in the tournament. So
which is great, and that might be an advantage in many ways. But if you guys want to kind of talk about the tournament or find announcements on what is going on in the world of Shadowverse, make sure you go to @Shadowverse Game. They'll give you a whole bunch of announcements, not only of the Shadowverse Open, but of events like Game Start, like the Southeast Asia Mobile Majors that happened over the weekend, and a bunch of other things. We've got so many exciting things coming down the pipeline, so make sure you're following the social media channel and getting your updates, and also seeing our failed efforts in trying to get a Daria leader from the official show.
Yes. I still have Aldos, man. I saw
that. That was funny.
It didn't work.
No, it didn't.
Well, we'll have to think of another way to do it. But we're about to head into Crumjin versus Eplicus. Who are your guys' votes? Which do you like better?
I'm gonna have to go with Crumzian, man.
We're kind of on the side of Crumzian. We know him. Again, he's another player we've interviewed. He's been around for a long time.
Backstabbed you. He did join the Shadow Nexus.
No, it's not like that. Not like that.
You can level with me.
Organization, man. We just make tournaments and this, that, other. And at the time, we weren't all that competitive, so it didn't really make sense for him.
Well, the Shadow Nexus still is a fantastic team. If you want to join the Shadow Nexus, you don't need to reject them. They are very welcoming. They are like a teddy bear. You can give them a hug, and they will hug you back. That'd be a little
Shadowverse Teddy Bear. That's our new tagline.
Wow. Want that at all.
So adorable.
Like a vice grip. It's a vice grip. Much better.
Here it is. Crumjin versus Eplicus. Oh, using the Chun-Li leader. Okay. There's that card we talked about. Mars on the draw here. Talk to us a little bit about these opening hands and kind of where is the advantage going to be gained here in the mulligan, Exodium.
Sure. So we actually get to see a very stark difference here. It might not look like much, but the difference between having Staircase early and Quick Blader early. Not all the Disaster players are playing Quick Blader. And Quickblader is like this kind of like, I want to say wild card. A, because it can get a lot of damage in early, and B, because it's one of the only one play point cards in the entire deck, so you can kind of push an advantage on a turn. It kind of does its Illyrial impression. You do have to use a card for it, but generally speaking, late in the game, Quickblader doesn't really matter. Using it as a removal spell can be really good as a tempo swing.
Yeah. Now, again, PDK getting banned out. No one wants to fight that.
Oh yeah.
No one wants to fight that. Now I wanted to bring up a little bit of a factoid about Crumzion. Crumzion actually was the winner of our very first tournament.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was the very first one. Yeah.
The very first one. He was the first. He was the winner. So just a little bit of trivia on Crumzion. For those who don't know,
right.
He was the winner of the very first Shadow Nexus tournament.
And I believe it was with his own variation of a Ramp Dragon list.
It was,
and he was playing like Leviathans and some other like sweet tech cards that nobody had ever played, and he just like smashed everybody with it. I remember that.
Yeah, it was that and Wolf Bolt. Yeah,
That's right, Wolf Bolt. That's right.
Why don't I remember that?
Hey man, you know what?
It's
never bad to have a good mind. You know what I mean?
That's
good
true.
memory.
All
so
right.
we do see Crumzion missing turn 4, which is not great, but he has plenty of options for 5.
No, he's got Roundtable Assembly. He's got Council of Card Knights. I mean, he's good, man.
He's got all of the options, and he has a Staircase about to pop pretty soon here. So definitely not in bad shape. And against Midsword, you really do have some time in the mid game to like just not do something, right? Like, it's not that impactful because all of the really big stuff starts happening turn 5 plus. So
one of the things I like about the Midsword matchup is that the most important thing about it is the trading. You know, because in that matchup you don't have big board clears. You don't have, even 2-for-1s for the most part. You don't have that unless for some reason you happen to be teching stuff like Maisie. But for the most part, you don't have that. And I think it's actually really cool to see that we're going to see this type of gameplay take place where it's like, okay, we're trading, we're really fighting for the board. I think that's awesome.
I actually find this play really interesting. So Eplicas could have gone for white Paladin value there. Probably one of the best turns to get white Paladin value. And opts to go for his council as an answer to the council on Crumzion's side, which I find just a little bit interesting because he kind of loses some value here in losing the 1/3 ward to the Bane, as opposed to just losing a random 1/1 ward that you don't really care about. So I think that's an interesting choice.
Yeah, the thing about white Paladin is oftentimes in my experience, unless I'm playing against a deck that is like super aggressive, I just don't play it. Like there are just better things to play on the turn that you would, or like on a 3. You don't ever want to play it on 3 unless you just have nothing better to do. And but in the situation you were just talking about, I feel like white Paladin may have been a little better, but we don't know what his mindset was and why he didn't play it.
Right. It's just interesting. A card that you're probably not going to get much value out of in the course of this game. Obviously, there will be another council, perhaps from Crumzion or something like that, so you could get use out of it. But I feel like the early turns are the best way to leverage it because late game, there's just a lot more things you can do. And actually, as a mistake, Crumzion's also playing Quickblader. So actually, they're kind of like on the same train. I didn't realize I missed the Quickblader and the Crumzion side of things.
Well, yeah, because it's Taji.
Taji, it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say that one card that we haven't seen, and it's something we usually see at Midsword, but it's not something we're seeing right now, and haven't seen in the last couple of Midsword matches, Luminous Mage.
That's true.
Haven't seen it.
Luminous Mage used to be a mainstay, but now we have so many good 5 options in the sword. For sword now, we have Council of Card Knights, we have Roundtable Assembly, we have Albert. There's just too much good stuff there.
Yeah, too many good cards.
Yeah.
Too many good cards. Sword is just stacked with good cards.
Yes, it is. And that's why you see really prevalent aggro decks. Now we're seeing a mid-range deck kind of kick all of these players into top 4, which is absolutely incredible. If you guys were looking for a meta-breaking deck Maybe a deck that can beat those aggro swords that you were really, really having trouble against. Maybe even aggro blood and all that stuff. Maybe not PDK. That's why they're banning out PDK. But this might be a good deck to look into.
Now remember that this is for the tournament environment. Because you try to do this on ladder, you're going to get rolled by PDK.
If you do play against a bunch of PDK, it can feel bad. But if you know, you're really just hating your opponent round table assembling into Julietting you, and then you just losing all the time, this is probably a good deck against that.
Yeah.
Because like we talked about in the previous weeks, right? Like it's a strategy, right? You either have to ban PDK or ban aggro sword at the moment. And they're choosing to play PDK and ban it, and then instead of having aggro sword as a second deck, they have mid sword to counter the sword. So like this is all a part of their strategy to just beat what they think the tournament meta is going to be. And they did really well at it this week.
Yeah, you see how many of them are like littering the bracket? Like it just
and
came
like
in
I
full
said,
force, man.
like I said, they even had to team kill on the way to the top 4, like in the last round. So like they're regardless of who won those matches, there would have been a ton of disaster players.
Yes, which honestly I think is really cool to see that these guys really took it seriously. They put in their work. They did their testing. They did their complaining. I'm sure there was complaining, you know, and that, you know, the complaining led to a great result. And right now, these guys are doing so well. So shout outs to you guys, Disaster, for showing the people the way to go when you know they're kind of stuck in a bind.
Okay, so here's something that I didn't previously think about because they're all new interactions, but Mars plus saving the White Paladin for a Mars kicker essentially just gives you more stats on board. So that might have been a good move then. Just waiting for that second round in order to do it.
Tons of stats. Tons and tons of stats. So, now, I know you're not much of a sword player. I mean, I know you've played it a little bit, but...
Right.
You know, you're not too much of a sword player. But now let's talk about an archetype that generally never gets played right quick before you know something happens here. Control sword. All right.
Yeah.
Now let's ask this: what type of card would be needed to make that deck viable?
There needs to be a bigger bridge. So you're talking about like old school with like Bahamut's and Odin's and, you know, like the supremely top heavy sword decks.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. Honestly, what it needs is a bridge. So Dragon can do it because it has ramp, right? Sword can kind of do an impression, but it doesn't have a lot of stop gaps on the way up to 10 play points, right? Like you have Fangblade Slayer, you have Albert and all those things, which are great on offense, but not really great on defense. There's not good ways to board clear turn after turn. There's not really good ways to gain life. So honestly, the best card they could get is Sybil. But that's not going to happen.
Please
but
no.
Like, honestly, something very similar to Sybil in style and effect of being able to either ramp you or gain you health while being defensive or something like that. They just need some kind of a bridge to get to the late game. Because at the moment, I don't think that Control Sword will ever come back. I don't think it's necessary because of how good its mid-game has gotten. And they drastically have to change how Sword plays out for that to change, I believe.
That was fun for
That's fair. That's fair. Now, to explain what just happened there for the people who may not know, the Kahulin or Lancer in this particular case did have Bane, so it did trade into the Fangblade Slayer. Now, it didn't take damage, but Bane still triggers. So as long as combat took place between the followers, it still happened. So that's why they both died.
Bane very much a real thing in this matchup that you have to watch out for, specifically because Albert, and this doesn't happen often, but we've seen it on stream before, where you have your enhanced Albert that doesn't take any damage. If you run it into a Bane follower, it will just die. Don't do this.
Yep.
Don't do this, guys.
Yeah. Seen it too many times. Too many times, like, hey, I got Albert, I'm good. Run into a Bane follower. Hey, why my Albert die? You know,
where'd it go?
Too many times, man. Too many times.
And that can come into play if like you're really behind and you need to clean up a Council of Card Knights or something like that. You might want to find a better option than jamming your Albert into that 1/3 with Bane. But you might not have it at that point, so kind of moot. But very interesting interaction with Bane.
Now, I actually like this over playing the Albert. He fills the board up. He knows his opponent's out of Evo points, so outside of having, say, multiple Genos, he's not going to be able to clear a good bit of this board. Actually, he's not going to be able to do that at all because you can't play multiple Genos in a turn.
Right.
Well, you can if you have 10 play points. You can't
Right, if you have 10.
9. Yeah. Bladed Hedgehog is showing its value. Okay.
Yeah. Even if the board gets cleared here, the damage is still gonna stick. So this is pretty much a do or die here for Eplicus. And as we see, he doesn't really have a lot of good options here. Even if he fishes with the Lux, the best he can really hope for is an Albert to actually play this turn. Okay, or White Paladin. Yep, that one works too. That's a ward.
That is a ward, but he's got Front Guard General sitting in hand, which means it's not on the board, which means
bad thing. Pain and more pain. But White Paladin was a good pickup. So White Paladin being able to be played and obviously offer some defense without any Evo points. But as we know, there is an Albert in hand. There's even Council of Card Knights and Taji there sitting just to get extra value to help clean up the board and pump those Bladed Hedgehogs up to a crazy amount.
Now, let's talk about, in this expansion, one mechanic, and we were actually just talking about it a little bit, but Bane. How great Bane has become. Okay, like we didn't see a lot of Bane before. I mean, we saw it on like maybe Righteous Devil. We saw it on Fangirl.
Real quick, we'll get right back to that. Quick Blader also with Mars turns into a 2/2 for 1 play point.
Yeah. Insane.
So, insane value. And Crumzion taking this game away.
A dead Eplicus. I'm sorry, man.
Yes.
But
Also with Mars, look at how big this Albert gets after a few attacks. Or I'm sorry, if it would.
Bladed Hedgehogs.
It would get bigger. Yeah, Bladed Hedgehogs, just everything just so much bigger. Mars is incredible. Play Mars if you're playing mid-sword. Maybe even, I don't know. Mars has a big application. You could probably do a lot with that card that we haven't explored yet. All right, so sorry.
I mean,
what were you getting into?
I was saying that how much Bane has become, almost a staple to the game now. It's not something we saw a lot of, but now we have Council of Card Knights. We got the Kahulin/Lancer. We've got the new
Scorpius.
Blood. Scorpius. We got the other one, the Ward that has Bane as well. The 4-drop. Was it Uriel? So there's a lot of Bane, and I think it's pretty sweet to see Bane.
People aren't really utilizing it as much as I think they could at the moment. And I don't think that Bane's going anywhere. I assume they will keep printing cards with Bane. You can't make him too powerful because that effect is really good. Sword has the majority of the good ones, right? You got Fangblade Slayer and the 2 that you mentioned. But let's hop into this game. So we're neutral forest versus mid sword. Who do you think has the edge in this matchup?
I think this comes down, honestly, to if Crumzion can actually nail the Beauty and the Beast on a semi-empty board, because we know that Genos have Rush. And we know that Eplicus does have a fair amount of things that have Rush. So those using the Rush followers along with being able to Evo with things that are on board already, or whatever the case is, could actually give him a little bit more, stretch against Beauty and the Beast. So it like, unlike most classes, when Beauty and the Beast comes down, you're just like, well, I can't deal with it. Sword actually can trade into Beauty and the Beast. Yeah.
Because as we see, Sword plays mostly followers, and that's how you kill Beauty and the Beast, not with your spells.
Right.
So definitely has a lot of the tools to be able to do that, Geno being one of the best ones, because you can use your Evo point on something else while that already has Rush to kind of just jam for a bunch of damage into Beauty and the Beast.
There's also one other thing, one other facet of this matchup, and it's that since Sword can play so many followers, it makes it much harder to play Beauty and the Beast, because they're far more likely to just, clear your board, force you to have to play more cards, clear your board, force you to have to play more cards, and then that means you won't have the cards you need to play them.
So here's a question for you. There was an opportunity there for Eplicus to actually Evo the Mars to protect it against the Pure-Hearted Singer, just to present a card that your opponent probably has to Evo into. I don't know if I like just sitting there with not using the Evolution Orb and just giving your opponent some advantage this turn.
I think it may have been a little greedy, but if we've looked at how the play has been going on from the last game, Eblicus has shown that he's willing to be very stingy with his evos. So he's like, I'm only gonna evo when I have to, only when I have to, not any sooner than that. So I do understand what you're saying, but his play style at this point is kind of stingy. Well, like, no, mine. I get all the evos. They're mine. So
it is interesting. And I believe this play is a little interesting too. Not playing the Lyriel, I guess holding it for the Beauty and the Beast so that it can potentially get some sort of protection here.
Now, I find it a little odd that he wouldn't want to try and set up the Beauty and the Beast, but this does allow him to clear board, which is very good against Sword. You know, keeping their boards clear, forcing them to have to play more followers, stuff like that. It's very good against Sword because he doesn't have board wipes in his list that we can.
It just feels like he's playing a little bit more for the late game, of course, with that, not putting the Lyriel into play, not holding more of the cards to set up for, you know, the full effect of Beauty and the Beast. So yeah, just kind of like a middle ground here. Like, I kind of want to play defensive here because I don't want to lose board control, but I also want to set up for this Beauty and the Beast because it's probably my best chance to win now, especially now that I have area. So, yeah. Interesting side of events from Crumsy in that last turn. There was a lot of decisions that could have been made, and we saw a very middling one there.
Well, these guys are certainly taking their time with their decisions. They're like, you know what, man? I can see into your brain, bro. I can see. I know what you got, man.
They're on the sheepy plan, right? Like, take your time, think about all your turns. He probably had a talk with them after the interview yesterday, or not the interview, but just him being on the show. And he was just like, guys, take your time. Take your time. Yeah. It's okay. You don't have to play fast.
This is prime Lyriel, okay? Prime Lyriel.
Lyriel doesn't do anything. What are you talking about?
Prime Lyriel right here, okay? Prime. Absolutely juicy Lyriel. I mean, he could play the Hector if he really wanted, but Lyriel.
Could play Hector. Yeah.
I think Lyriel's better. Now, if he wants to preserve the Evo, he could play Hector. Huh?
Right. Hector will always get value in the late game, whereas Lyriel won't. And if you don't use your Evo here, I don't know. You're just. I guess it's not that big of a deal not using an Evo. Like, using the Hector to kill the 4/1's nice, but I kind of like saving the 3 damage for face. But then again, with Beauty and the Beast, you might not need the extra 3 damage when you already have Ariad access. So it's very big give and take here, and I think that's what he's deciding on. Can I really afford to give up the 3 damage? Do I really want to use my Evo point here? I think you almost definitely want to get that Mars off the table. The longer Mars sits in play, the scarier and scarier.
Way more value. Yeah, it's super scary. Mars is the epitome of something we were talking about before. Synergy. Mars says, look, all Swordcraft followers, follow me. I got you covered. All right. And like, even this is great value. Just this trade, they get the clash effect of buffing the card, making it even harder. You know, making it easier for your opponent to kill, harder for you to trade. Like, I love that. That Mars is such a cool card. I'm glad to see it getting played.
I really like. I didn't even notice the interaction between Quickblader. Like, a lot of the mid sword lists were cutting it because Quickblader is not like a huge value card or anything like that. But if you're playing 3 Mars in your deck, Quickblader becomes pretty prime removal. It becomes a whole Soul Swing that only costs 1. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
That is really good. Yeah. Well, we can see that Eplicus can take out Delirio. He is still sitting on 2 Evos. I don't think that Crumzion's really going to have much of a chance to play this Beauty and the Beast. Unless, for some reason, something happens and, you know, there's an open slot. I just don't see it right now.
Right, and Staircase isn't popping anytime soon. He hasn't been flooding the board out, anything like that to help it pop faster. Can't really, because all the cards in his hand are super expensive and he wants to keep them in his hand. But it's really going to cost him over the course of the next few turns, because the longer this game goes, I feel like the better Midsword gets.
Yeah, especially because they have that wonderful thing called Alpha.
Yes.
Well,
and as we
that
see, no
Beauty
pumps.
and the Beast is going to probably die.
Probably. Leaving Beauty and the Beast on the table is never a good idea, especially when you know your opponent's playing areas.
Right, like, pretty sure. Wow. Wow.
Just gross.
Wow. That is disgusting. I love it. Okay.
Just
Love it.
Can even play the Bladed Hedgehog to get value here.
Oh, Mars. Oh, Mars. Such a great card.
Yeah, I might have even, you know what? No, that's right. We talked about this. Can't leave the Beauty and the Beast in play because of area. So I was like,
Yeah,
maybe
can't
just
do
leave
that.
that there, right? No, can't do that. No.
No,
That's a
crazy.
bad idea. Yeah.
Let's not get crazy, X. Let's not get crazy. I know you get a little excited over it. Like, hey, man, don't do that. That's not good.
Don't do it. Don't do it. So we get to see Mars actually get to stay in play and then get value off of Gino. And then right after that, get value with Albert, regardless of what Crumsian really does. Like, wards aren't really going to help him here because they're just going to get cleaned up very easily. That Bladed Hedgehog is not going to slow down in damage. Oh my god.
This is... Can we say disgusting yet?
Quick Blader.
Quick Blader showing his skills. Let's speed things up. And let's take things out. Because that's what's happening right now. Look at Mars
This is just so nasty. Now, if you thought that a good inclusion now, even against Midsword now, when they're playing Mars, is, you know, Cassiopeia, Will of the Force, it's going to be really hard to pull those off when you're playing a bunch of followers into Mars.
Oh, and he gets the Beauty and the Beast, but yet again, and he's one turn off of Grimnir, yet again, this is exactly what I was talking about before. There are just times you can't play the Beauty and the Beast. He's going to have to play this Hector now to clear his Mars. He can't let it sit there anymore. Can't.
Might even go in with the Grimnir now because he has 2, just so he can stave off as much damage as possible. Well, because he knows that Albert's ever present.
Yeah. He can play Hector. Oh, he's going to play Unica. Okay. And Illyrio. Okay. All right. So that he could have. You're right. He definitely could have just played a Grimnir there to ward up, but oh man, Mars
this
showing
is so close to game.
Yeah, it is. It's not quite there yet. Not quite.
So I feel Unica is going to be the primary target here. And he knows Grimnir is an option for Crumsian, so he's gotta play somewhat around that, but decides just to go all in with the Albert. Says, you know what? I'm getting that damage in.
Well, the thing is, he can get his damage in. He can even clear the board and have a massive Hedgehog along with his big Albert. You know? And Grimnir doesn't even clear Albert.
No, it does not. So Grimnir doesn't feel very spicy right now.
No, it feels very bland. Very, very bland. And Snap Grimnir, but...
Snap Grimnir just lost in the game. He needed a Hector first.
Yeah. Yeah, he shouldn't have done that. Oh, well.
Ooh. Oh, well. And that will be Eplica's evening up the match.
Yeah.
Great play. I'm really loving this sword deck. This sword deck is so
dude.
sweet.
Yeah. We were like, oh man, aggro sword, but this is sweet. Like show me this all day. Like I love these
interactive synergy. Yeah. You know, it has a lot of play to it, a lot of choices to make on your turns too. A lot of choices to make.
Yeah. It's not just, you know, set it and forget it. It's
right. I play my 1-drop, I play my 2-drop, I play my 3-drop. Like the end. Like no, you gotta understand what you're doing with this deck.
Yeah, these guys they're playing each other very well.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is another matchup where Beauty and the Beast is a big focal point because Shadow, all of its stats are really low until you start getting up to the Thane and the Ektar turns. So if Beauty and the Beast can come out, you know, just a little early, it might be very hard for Eplicus to do anything about it. However, I don't think Force has really good options of board clearing beyond the Elf Twins Assault that we see to really stop a big Ektar push. So I think the early game is super important here. Like if Eplicas can go wide, if Crumsian can keep it under control, and then whoever is pretty much ahead on board going into the mid to late game probably has a huge edge here.
Well, there is a little bit of a difference between playing Beauty and the Beast when you're going first and when you're playing it when you're going second. There's a very big difference between them. You know, when you're playing it when you're going first, if it's like, well, in this particular matchup. Like, well, you're not trading into my stuff, man. You're not trading into my Beauty and the Beast. None of the cards you have can kill it. You know,
Right.
if you're going second, that Ektar could, you know, make that happen.
Yep.
So like I said, there's a little bit of a difference, a little bit.
But I like it. I like the adoption of these slower mid-range decks playing the staircase just because it gives you a card draw outlet. Like, you don't have to play these suboptimal things to draw cards anymore. And you play a 1-drop that just gets extreme value over time. Now, Neutral Force is kind of weird with staircase because Neutral Force doesn't really jam a lot of followers into play, right? To make that staircase go off any earlier. So
Right.
I feel like it's kind of a little different in that deck versus the Sword deck, where Sword plays tons of followers all the time. That's all it does. So interesting to see it included also in the Neutral Force that Disaster is bringing.
Well, the thing is that you can play. Let's say you're playing in a slower matchup, and you get to like 5, and you want to still be able to play the Beauty and the Beast, and you have like a low hand. You can play it right before that. You draw a full hand of cards, and then you can play your Beauty and the Beast on the following turn because you'll have a bunch of cards in hand. So it does give you that ability, and I personally think it's a really good idea in those really slow matchups. Like this is probably gonna be a game that lasts for a while.
Yeah, in the slow matchups, I definitely agree. For the most part, though, you're essentially giving up your turn 5 to make a good Beauty and the Beast turn on turn 6, but by giving up the turn, you might give up the advantage that the Beauty and the Beast has with all of its big stats because your opponent had an extra follower, right, to play, or maybe even group of followers. So
I think that's a little bit more prevalent in, again, I think it's kind of is the going first versus going second thing, right? That Goblin Mountain Demon draw was great, though.
Yeah.
This is, again, like I said, making a little bit of a difference between going first and going second. If you're going first,
circa 1923, Goblin Mount Demon resurfacing.
coming back. But you know what?
That's
Goblin
right.
Mountain Demon is quite good right now. Quite
It
good,
is.
especially in his mid-range decks, these mid-range matchups. Yeah, it's great against the aggro decks, but it's also good against mid-range.
Yeah, all these. You know what, Disastra? I'm gonna take a little credit. I said play more wards. They were like, you know what? All of our decks, wards. That's what
Jam
we're doing.
all the wards, man. Jam them
all the wards. This is a ward format. If you don't got them, go home and get some. Let's go.
Yep. Hey, borrow some from your friend if you have to. Okay.
That's
Get
right.
some wards in your deck. Okay, get some wards
Go
in
over,
there.
go over to your neighbor's house, knock on their door, be like, any wards, please? I kind of ran
Yeah,
out
can
over
I have
on my
a couple
house.
wards? That's right.
Yeah.
Can I have a couple wards? You know, let's go.
Cup of sugar, cup of wards, you know, same.
No. Okay, so we see that he's definitely going to take this out. Yeah, he
Zombie
can't.
party it down. It even has the Demon Eater to follow up here to draw more cards. This is a great turn for Epicus.
Excellent turn. But this is yet another scenario, yet another one, where you cannot play Beauty and the Beast.
Yep.
You can't play it here. You can't at all. Yeah, this is exactly the problem.
Not only is this board full for Ektar, there are enough shadows for Ektar to get full value if need be. And there are 2 Ektars in the hand for Epicus, so he is far and away in control of this game at the moment.
Does the word stacked come to mind?
Hands
Very-
a little stacked.
Yeah, this hand is stacked, okay? It has so many things. It's got the Saber Altar, which is Dark Blade Fiend. So it's got that, which is pretty good. It's a ward. So for those who don't know what that is, it's a ward. And at the end of the turn, it uses Necromancy 2, which basically means it consumes 2 shadows to do 2 damage to a random enemy follower. Sweet card.
And it's a 3/5, very big stats, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Bigger stats than most of the shadow cards have, of course, other than Ektar.
Well, yeah,
Ektar's
Ektar.
stats are, I mean...
Big Daddy Ektar. Okay. Big Daddy. Yeah, that Staircase of Paradise is going to mean anything.
Yeah, not only that, but like even if there's another ward here, there is another Ektar. Yeah. This is just one of those positions where Crumzion's neutral forest deck did not draw enough of the control that he needed in the early game to actually stop this board control. Like I was saying, if Epicus had the board control going into those Ektar turns, it's going to be really hard for neutral forest because they don't have a lot of comeback mechanics.
Right. Neutral Forest, it has 2 glaring flaws. One, it doesn't have a lot of comeback mechanics, and by that I basically am saying Storm because it has no Storm.
It's not playing the Saha Quill package like it used to
Yeah.
as well. It's not playing like Saha into Lucy or Israfil or anything like that to kind of clean up these big boards. It's not playing Cassiopeia, Will of the Forest, none of these board clear cards. So it's just hoping that its followers are bigger in stats than their opponents more often than not.
Yep. And Crumzion saw the writing on the wall. He's like, okay, you know what, man? It says I'm dead. I can read it. You know, it's in bright lights. You know?
Epicas taking out Crumzion. I like it. New blood. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm with it, man.
Epicus moves on to the upper finals in a very well played game. It seems like the neutral forest list had trouble 2 games in a row to really handle what was going on. And that mid-sword list is really, really quite impressive. There's a lot of power behind it.
Yeah, sweet.
I really enjoyed seeing, we talked about kind of the key cards that were available for Sword, which was the Staircase, the Mars, and then the Lux, right? And I really feel like kind of maybe pushing this deck. I mean, we mentioned at the start of the expansion how things always kick off with aggro, and then as the meta develops, we get more and more towards this mid-range kind of playstyle, and maybe even getting to control if the decks can be refined to that point. And maybe this is the kind of the kickoff towards that direction, where a lot of players are now opting for more mid-range oriented decks.
Yes,
but
it is.
let's take a look at the bracket and see where these players are moving to. So in the upper finals, DV8 versus Epicus is going to be the title match here. Who will move on to the next season? If DV8 wins, he is in. If Epicus does it, then in his first performance on top ends of the NGE tournaments, he will actually make it into the season. So having a really, really great run. Crumzion being put down towards the bottom. And of course, over there, way far down at the bottom on the lower end is going to be Belaine versus CPV's Lekka. And CPV is a team that we haven't seen in a while, but definitely can still around there. Those players are going to be fighting out for elimination matches, so whoever loses has no chance, has to come back again next week.
That's right.
Booted!
Out of here.
Out of here.
Boot.
Das Boot.
The boot.
Get it out of here.
Giving them the boot. And it's really important. You don't want to take the boot at this point in time because these qualifiers get you into the season, which means you get to compete in the Contenders Cup, which heads over to the World Grand Prix. And that's the tournament in Tokyo, Japan at the end of the year, December 23rd and 24th. It's going to be the biggest tournament of the year. The total prize pool is going to be $120,000 US, and international competition is going to be collected from Europe, North America, Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. And so in order to participate, you need to be playing in these qualifiers, making it into the season, and then week 4, we're going to play the Contenders Cup tournament, which is a double elimination tournament, and the top 3 from that will move on to the World Grand Prix. So that is how that's going to be decided. And based on what I'm seeing, I mean, the interesting thing too is because the meta is slightly different in Japan due to their formats, it's going to be very important for these players, as I think Sheepy was alluding to and mentioning. You need to respect the formats quite a lot because the game plays very differently. So I'm interested to see what these players will do in terms of preparation, which means that teams like Disastra might be really well suited because they might be able to practice and learn and have their team kind of adopt that format and play kind of their test tournaments and whatnot in that style.
Well, this is a good note for not just Disastra, but anyone out there. If you guys have a team, you know what I mean? Put together a play schedule. Put together your own little weekly tournament. You know what I mean? Follow Disastra's example. You see that it works. Get your team more organized, get them efficient at testing for the tournaments, and then practice what you need to practice to push yourself into the top rungs of competition. You know what I mean? Like, they're doing it right. They're showing you how. They're laying the path. Ask them questions. You know what I mean? They have leaders. They have captains. Talk to them. See what you guys need to do to set up your team the right way.
Let's see if the West can defeat the East here in the World Grand Prix. I'm going to be really interested to know if any of our top players can make it to the finals there. But we're going to jump into Belaine versus Lekka. In CPV, like I mentioned, not a team that we saw too commonly. I think they were a little more prominent earlier on in kind of the lifespan of Shadowverse, but they're still definitely around, still have some very great players amongst their roster. What has Lekka brought for us today? Is it something similar to what Disastra has brought, or is this kind of new flavor that we're going to see? I'd be interested to know. I mean, we've already seen Belaine play once, but perhaps kind of, you know, practicing internally is not going to necessarily prepare you the best against an opponent that might have completely different information and different strategies going into the match.
Well, from a glance here, it looks like he brought PDK. He brought aggro
Wow.
sword. So he's a week behind on the meta. He didn't catch up just like Disaster did by bringing mid sword, and he's also playing neutral forest. So it looks like the meta's being pretty defined here for the tournament this week, at least on the North American side of things. People know what they're doing. They have their testing. It's just that differentiation on the sword at the moment.
Let's see if yeah. And it'll be really interesting. We'll get to see in practical terms how this aggro sword list may not live up to the mid sword list that Disaster might bring or field, and that'll be interesting to see what Lekka's ban strategy is as well. I mean, you would assume that he would ban PDK, but again, he's not on that same wavelength necessarily.
Right.
So
he might ban mid sword if
PDK,
mid sword is the counter to sword because he thinks his PDK is going to get banned and he can play his sword. So there's a whole lot to go into there, right?
We'll see. It's up in the air. Aya Senpai seems pretty convinced, but we're jumping into the game now. Lekka versus Belain. You can't be sabotaging the broadcast, Aya. I have a question for you.
Me?
What is your new cursed deck?
Ooh,
Okay.
we haven't talked about that yet.
We haven't. All right, so I was actually gonna save the cursed deck for the round robin because I was gonna save it for the round robin, but it's gonna be D shift.
Ooh, that's probably a really good choice. Yeah, I can see that. D-Shift was very popular kind of in Wonderland Dreams and saw kind of a lot of play, and it's one of those decks that I think never necessarily dies, but can kind of come back or fade out depending on what's happening in the meta. But Lekka versus Belain, their mulligans are done. Going to be neutral forest against that mid sword that we've been talking about. Take it away, guys.
See,
So here's a question for you, Aya, real
go
quick.
ahead. Sure.
Odin. Why is Lekka playing Odin? Why do you think that?
I honestly could not tell you. So Odin does do a few things, right? Odin does give you a way to get rid of a PDK. Okay, so if you don't, say, have a buffed up Elf Twins Assault or, if Cassiopeia that can clear the board, because it generally won't, not against PDK board anyway. Odin does give you a way to get rid of a PDK if you happen to be playing against it. Of course, we know he banned it.
Right.
So
maybe a
Odin,
hedge against Seraph. Maybe he saw Seraph like yesterday and he's like, I really don't want to lose this Seraph. That's really the big reason to play it. Maybe, it's just for extra Bahamut kills in the late game against other late game decks. But Odin seems kind of out of the meta right now, and just interesting to see that card. I'm sorry to cut you off. What'd you want to start saying?
No, I was just gonna say, hey, no one's playing Seraph. Okay,
Yeah.
no one's that crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, no one's playing that. But actually, Odin ends up being quite good against that mid sword list we saw, because he can get rid of those front guard generals.
That's true. So it is good against front guard general. Okay.
So that is, now we don't know that he knew that, but I'm just saying, like, incidentally, it ends up being pretty good against that.
We also haven't seen anyone actually put a front guard general into play yet.
No, we have not. No front guard generals have made as of yet. We're on watch looking for it, but so far it hasn't happened.
That's right.
Because it hasn't been a reason to play it, in the matches that we've seen. Not that front guard general is bad; it's a great card. It's just we haven't really seen a reason for anyone to play it.
So here's another question I got to pose to you, because I've been thinking about it for the last couple matches here. So Neutral Forest seems to be this new meta deck that a lot of people are gravitating towards, right? Every single game that we see it played, it just loses the board so easily. Everything's so expensive in the deck. You can't really 2-for-1 very many times, if at all. I mean, Lyriel save Lyriel, but that's not a forest card, of course. That's a neutral card. Like, and there's, they're not playing Will of the Forest. They're not playing Cassiopeia. Like, they're just not playing anything that clears boards. And they're not playing the Sahaquill package. Like, it just seems super clunky to me.
It does. I'm a little perplexed by the decision making of, for the Neutral Forest. I mean, I feel like Neutral Forest is there to kind of fight against PDK because it's pretty decent against that. But everyone's banning PDK, so my question is, like, what matchup does Neutral Forest actually win? You
Right.
know,
And so far as
it's
we
not
can
beating
tell,
Anime.
it doesn't win against these mid sword decks either. Mid sword seems to be taking it out, even team killing with it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Out of my sight.
But I actually wanted to say earlier that I actually like Lekka's pick to start with this list because he may have realized this was a bad matchup. So by allowing Belain to win this matchup, he takes his sword out of the equation and it gives him the ability to play his sword and not be countered.
that's true. That's very true. I like that thought process. Basically, not playing the deck that gets countered and just kind of scooping up this matchup. Not trying to scoop it up, of course, but at least if this sword deck wins, it's not going to be able to be played against the aggro sword deck of Lekka, which is where he doesn't really want to play it. So
Right, he doesn't want to play that matchup. Knows that it's bad, and if he had played aggro sword in this particular matchup that we just saw, he probably would have lost just as badly as this happened right there.
right,
Because
exactly.
that the boards and the cards that Blaine was playing, he's playing on fire, man. He's like, look, man.
Yep, I know what
you-
I'm doing. Very straightforward. Like, we didn't even have a lot to talk about that. That was just Belain curving out, doing what Sword does alongside of Mars. We've been talking about Mars a lot, but putting in a lot of work there, being able to use Novice Troopers to push through Grimnir without any evolution orbs. I mean, just really, really strong cards.
Now, the way that Belain's dirt list is kind of set up, it's actually set up to, it looks like, to counter Sword. Because it's running the Apprentice Alchemist, you know, and I believe we saw, and we may have seen a Golem Assault. I don't think it was a Golem Assault, but I do remember.
But even just Apprentice Alchemist is not a card you see a lot in dirt, and it's got to be a hedge, right? It's just an anti-aggro card. It lets you play another 2-drop in your deck, so very well suited for this meta game. I think all Disaster did a good job.
But the problem is no sigil.
No sigil at the moment. That's right. So aggro sword is going to take kind of a lead here. Now, Belen, while not getting sigils, did get followers he could use to trade with the board early. So definitely not out of this by any means in the early game. But it's going to get tougher and tougher as the turns go on, of course.
Yeah. So he's just going to... I like getting rid of that. No, actually, I like getting rid of that because unchecked, that card goes nuts. Okay? So I actually really dig taking it out. It goes nuts on sword board.
Of course it does. I mean, you get to trade basically forever, but not having any sigils in the first 3 turns would have made me think, maybe I don't need to do this now, and maybe eating the sigil before a Master Mage Levy can come down to clear one of my boards might be a good thing. Maybe that Magic Illusionist isn't the biggest problem I have to deal with coming up. But electing to make the trade, which I find that to be probably one of the most interesting choices so far that an aggro sword deck has made.
Well, I don't think it was a bad choice. The thing is that he has tons of value cards. He's got the Council of Card Knights. He's got Roundtable Assembly in his deck. He has Outweed's Command. So he's got tons of value cards. And even though he is playing aggro, at this point, he's not necessarily forced into a rush to, you know, just go straight crazy and just go all face, even though we know that's the primary game plan of his deck.
What also I find interesting is that usually we've seen our aggro sword players put the ephemera into play before they start out, like basically before they start unloading the rest of their hand. Lekka opting to go for the more play point oriented play with the council here instead of playing the ephemera first. Now, I almost really agree with, like, we have not seen ephemera just being played into a bald board with all of the value cards in your hand really steer aggro sword players wrong. So I'm almost inclined to say that not putting the ephemera into play first might have been a mistake.
Maybe. I don't know exactly what he could be afraid of by not doing that. And we just noticed a very interesting line of play. He chose to not play his Dance of Death, yet instead to play his Ward. What do you think of that line?
It's rough to me because the Bane exists. Because the Bane exists, that Wizardess is dying, especially using the Evo on the Wizardess, and not the Ward to actually like force an Evo over. This is yeah, I don't know. Keeping the Bane in play here basically just gives so much value to Lekka on this turn.
Right. Well, getting rid of the Dance of Death is mega value.
Right.
Know?
Like, I think I would have rather had the chance of keeping my Wizardess alive or forcing my opponent to evo heavy into it and losing a small ward. And yeah, using the Dance of Death not only for more damage, but just a lot harder decisions for my opponent to make. So yeah, definitely different line of play, for sure.
Well, this is interesting. So he's pre-evoing, or is that not pre-evoing, but he's actually evoing the Ephemera and trading with that so that he can push damage, because he has another one in hand.
Yeah, I don't mind this play at all because, you know, Master Mage Levy, very hard to pull off right now. No Evos left. So.
Well, he got a Sigil finally. You know, finally got one of those.
Yep. Most likely saving it for Carl. Gain a little bit of extra damage there.
Oh yeah, this is going 100% face. It's not trading.
Extra life gain. No,
face.
No more trading. Yeah.
No. See, I think Lekka played this game very well. You know, despite the fact he is, you know, he is the very aggressive player, but he's actually played around Blaine's cards very well. And now we know that Blaine has to play this deck again against the Forest deck. And I think the Forest deck may have, the way that it's configured, may have a little bit of a better chance than Crumzion's listed.
Definitely. Like, realistically, it comes down to the same stuff. It's just, can I get my errands to gain some life? Can I play around a mutagenic bolt to not die to it, and then just get to my end game? Because I think that neutral force is actually set up just fine against, very specifically, Dirt Rune.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It can be a little bit of a rough matchup. It can be, but to me, I think that the matchup plays out. I think it's a little bit in the favor of neutral forest. I feel, because they do have
it might be slightly. They have the heals, they have big wards. They don't play a lot of followers to make Piercing Runes and Dance of Deaths and Mutagenic Bolts that much better. Sometimes they even pass. Beauty and the Beast can't be targeted by any of them, so it can definitely do it. And honestly, we haven't even really seen an unchecked big Beauty and the Beast early yet. And we're definitely due for that.
Yeah, we haven't seen it because too many boards keep coming up that prevent it.
Yeah.
Just keeps happening. But now we're actually seeing, you know, Carl healing up, but unfortunately, I don't know how much he can really heal out of this. Yeah, this is a lot to deal with. I don't know how much he can really heal to get out of this.
Not only that, but like Centaur Vanguard, even with an activator in hand in the Princess. So gonna have to deal with this entire board, period, just to be able to stay alive for another turn.
Well, he can definitely trade with the board. He can play the Halo Golem to shoot something, and then he can play another Sigil, so he'll be able to gain another health. So, offer the Carl.
And it was an interesting choice to not play the Cauldron before the Periscope or the Telescope, because it could have essentially drawn him an extra card earlier. Oh, he's not even going to want to put it into play now. Okay.
Yeah, well, he certainly can.
Right.
Yeah, he really can't play it now.
So actually, this line gave him the best chance. So I like everything he did. Forget about playing Witch's Cauldron for extra card draw. Carl at the very end there, gaining him the extra life to put him out of a 3 damage range. Super important.
Yes. Carl is so good in this matchup. So good. But now we have a problem with
board space.
Lekka is now, well, yeah, we have board space, but Lekka is now in top deck mode. Now, we do know that Sword has plenty of cards that they can draw to win this game. So it's not so much as top deck as I'll call it destiny draw. Can you believe in the heart of the cards enough to draw the one card you need that, you probably have 50 of because it's aggro Sword?
This is also a tough play for Balan too, because Scrap Iron Smelter is the best looking play, but it will fill up your board, right? So it makes it possible. Ooh, okay.
Well, that's a little confusing.
That is. Why not play the ward first?
This makes him.
I mean, not the ward, but the sigil.
Yeah, this makes him dead to a lot, actually. He's not dead to that. Yeah, he's not dead to that. But I like leaving the board that he can survive this attack. Leave the board filled. Don't let him be able to heal anymore, this and other. So if he draws Novice Trooper, Princess Juliet, any of those cards, game.
Ooh, not quite.
Oh, nope. It's
So
not
he's gonna
there.
have to trade. He's gonna have to board trade here.
Yeah, he's gonna have to trade with a Hail Golem, and that's not what you want, ever.
No. Now he's just praying for Albert. Albert's the saving grace.
Yeah, Albert is literally the only way he can win this game. Not to say that
Now,
he can't draw it.
Round table assembly could do it.
Well, no. Well, actually, yeah. I guess that could do it.
Round table assembly could do it.
All right, let's see.
Oh.
That's none of those cards.
Good old
That's
one
not-
drop. Good old one drop. Yep, Belaine feels bad for him, but Belaine playing very well, keeping himself out of lethal range by the hair on his chinny chin.
Yeah.
Belaine
Carl.
takes the win. Upper finals. And gassing out is something that happens for aggro decks, right? And that's still a very real thing. We talk about some of these card draw options that are now available to a lot of decks through Staircase and specifically through Swordcraft with the various cards that you mentioned. It's still a problem for aggro Sword. Much less so, I think there's a lot of stronger mid-game options that aggro Sword can go to. But it was an issue that we saw with aggro Blood for a long time until Karabos came along as well, and there were a few more options for card draw there. But Lekka, unfortunately, eliminated now, and will be put out of the tournament, and Belaine will move on. There's a boot. Let's see the bracket. Belaine will be very happy in the lower semifinals. Still a long way to go. Crumjan's opponent has not been found yet, and currently the two players fighting out for who will play against Crumjan is going to be Fantasy from CPV, another CPV member, and Disastra's Underwear coming back for another run. So we're going to be jumping, I think, into the middle of their match to see how they're doing. And if Underwear makes it, he's going to be one of those previous competitors in Season 2 that's going to try to make a run again here. In the lower bracket, not very easy. Not very easy at all. You don't have a lot of wiggle room. But I don't think we've had yet another repeat competitor, have we? Not yet. Not yet. So we'll see. Underwear might be the first, but Fantasy could defeat him, and even then, Crumjan might stop Underwear on his way to the Season 3. But we're about to jump into Fantasy versus Underwear, and I don't think we have a lot of information about them just because we're just hopping into this match. But Disaster versus CPV, it does seem like Disaster is slightly ahead in terms of technology and science.
Yes.
Their R&D has put them slightly ahead. But how have you guys been kind of liking the games today and seeing these interactions? And especially, I mean, I guess it's incredibly relevant for Exodium. How do you think it compares to Europe to get a sense of some of the different lines of play and decks that are being brought here?
Well, it's a lot more straightforward. In Europe, we still see their metagame in flux. We see a lot of different players bringing different things. They're trying their own strategies, which is not a bad way to go. I really think we kind of see a lopsided version of the metagame today because of how well Disaster specifically did. So we might not know what the metagame outside of Disaster is. What we do know is that they knew what it was, and they did very well against it. So right now, I think theirs is the tournament meta to watch out for and what you should plan for next week. Don't copy their decks. Realize the direction that the decks are going, and then plan for next week, and then build your own decks that can compete against where you think it will go after this week. Maybe a control meta might come back, so maybe aggro is the place to go again. Just do your homework, do your research, and bring your best decks forward next week, because next week, Rainy, is the last week.
Next week is the last week, that's right, because we are on the North American Qualifier Tournament, which means there's nothing after today until we get to next Saturday, which will be the European Qualifiers, and then the last North American Qualifier to follow, and then we're into the Contenders Cup. Next week also is a bunch of exciting stuff like TwitchCon, so that's going to be super, super fun. I'm looking forward to it, but we're jumping into this match here, Fantasy versus Underwear, and we're hopping in mid-match, and I'm not exactly sure which game this is. It might be just the first game here, but it looks like it's Sword versus Sword.
So Fantasy actually just won one of our recent tournaments. I tell the people about what he played at ours, because he's the one that introduced Mars Tech to me.
Yeah, he Fantasy is a dedicated Sword player, and I mean, dedicated. Okay.
Yeah.
He always plays sword. When it was bad, he was playing sword. Okay.
Right.
He is a dedicated student of the game. So, fantasy, well, at least student of sword. And as Exo mentioned, he did win our release event for Starforged Legends. You know, and he's the one who brought forth Mars to the world. Like, he basically showed, hey, man, Mars, good call.
That's
okay.
right.
So it was him.
Now
Only
it looks
him.
like it looks like he's departing from that though, playing a little bit more aggressive variant. We see Princess and Vanguard in his deck, so probably going away from the Mars plan. Actually, deciding, you know what, I kind of like Aggro Sword better, and it looks like he's in kind of a tough spot here.
Well, Fantasy's always been the I'm gonna hit you in the face guy. Okay, like he's like, if I don't have to think about it, I'm just gonna, you know, jam you in the face, and even if you can kill me, I'm still gonna jam you in the face. So Fantasy does not care. Not
Super
care.
fair. And I like this line. Just keep the board clear. Don't even need to push for extra damage. You have the Novice Trooper in hand for some more. Albert on the comeback to kill the Albert.
Yeah. Mars plus Albert, man.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That thing can ramp up.
Yeah. It's bonkers, man. And we've seen Kahulin about to kill this Albert. Get out of here, Albert.
All of these
And on the
protective
comeback-
cards that sword has.
Yes. And on the comeback, okay, on the comeback, it doesn't die. So for those who don't know what Kahulin does, it has Rush and Enhanced 6 against Bane, and whatever follower it trades into, it doesn't do damage back. So
It's mini Albert. It's little tiny guy Albert.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good card. Really good card.
Uh-oh.
yeah,
Fantasy doing his best rage quit impression.
He's like, man, I'm done. I can't. Okay, you know what, man? I tried to hit you in the face. You kept blocking. I can't take this anymore.
This is the point in the game where you're just like, man, I really wish that my opponent didn't have mid-sword against my aggro sword because it's a really tough matchup. And this is, I think, probably the story. Like, we actually get to see it here. We don't get to see it in the top 8 because all the aggro swords pretty much, except for CPV side of things, got pushed out. We get to actually see in action why Disastra is doing so well against the meta, and it's because their mid-sword deck is performing very well against the aggro sword list that I believe probably a ton of people are bringing today.
Yeah, they are definitely showing up. Disastra did their work. They did work.
I cannot fault them. And you know what? I think their stocks can go up after a lot today. They're going to get a lot of people being like, hey, how do I join Disastra? And you know what? I don't blame you if you want to try.
I don't blame them either. I don't blame them. You know what? I even encourage it. Okay?
That's right. You know what? I'm quitting the Shadow Nexus, and I'm going over to Disastra.
What just happened? Why are you leaving Shadow Nexus?
I'm not doing that. That's just a joke.
Or is it?
Or is it, right?
What's the date? The 15th of October. What is the time? Time's like, I don't know, 3.
Mark your calendars, folks.
Mark your calendars. On this day, Exodium announced his double agent status. Mark number 2. So Underwear will actually win 2-0. That was the second game of the series. Won with his Runecraft deck, and then defeated Fantasy with the Swordcraft deck, and was able to 2-0. CPV is out of there, so even more Disastra players representing. And he's going to have to run up against Crumjian in just a bit. Underwear versus Crumjian. Now, we talked about Sword, Dragon, Forest. But this time, Underwear is running Rune, which is going to be interesting. I'm going to assume it's Burn Rune, because
we're going to assume it's Dirt Rune. If their other teammate is any contention for that, I mean, we've seen kind of a split between, obviously they're running PDK and Mid-Sword, and even their PDKs are split, but they're split between Dirt Rune and Neutral Forest, and it's really just probably what they're more comfortable with. They probably have very similar matchups, is why they both slotted it in the same spot, but it's like probably more of a comfort feel. Like, I know how to play Rune a little bit better than I like to play Neutral Forest, and, you know, so on and so forth for each of their deck choices.
Now, obviously, Dirt Rune was very strong in Woodland Dreams. And much like we did with the Swordcraft deck, Aya, what are the new things that Dirt Rune players can look forward to in this particular expansion that have adjusted the deck a little bit, maybe given them a slight edge? What is kind of the thing you look forward to, or is it very much the same deck in Wonderland Dreams? Are there any of those
No,
special
actually,
cards?
there is, but there's only one card that's relevant. Okay. One.
Two.
Two, Aya.
Oh, give it
What's
to him,
the second?
Exodium.
What's the
Wait,
second?
hold on.
I know you're gonna say Carl. Okay, I
Yes.
know you're gonna say Carl. But there's also a 1-drop sigil that changed the tempo of the deck a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
Starseer's Telescope. Okay. All right. That card's good. All right. Carl. All right. Carl is your man. All right. Carl makes it where they have life gain, something that guy, what's the direction of? Yeah, that guy over there complained about for months. Okay, not
Every
having
day.
any heal.
Every day.
Every day. I wish the Rune had some heal. Give it some heal. Really need some heal. Side games, please. And he finally got it. Okay?
Bless up, Side Games. Bless up, Side Games.
They've answered Exodium's prayer. Hey,
Yeah.
now RuneCraft has Clark, Craig, Carl. They still need a Kyle,
Now that you need it.
Chris. Kyle, Chris. Maybe if they're gonna go into, if they move away from frat boys, then they might start getting Clarice. You might get Clara,
Well, Kyle, do you spell Kyle with a C? That's a weird way to spell Kyle, man.
Clark,
They
Craig.
spell Carl with a K.
That's
Is that like
true.
CHYLE? Can I name my kid that? Kyle with a CH? Does that work?
CHYLE.
Yeah, then people will call him Chile, and then it'll be like all messy when he's growing up. Yeah, I like that a little bit.
RuneCraft
Come here,
is
child.
weird. Carl, the pious instructor. Now, we had, because I was fooling around, and I'm an idiot, we didn't get to go over what Carl, the pious instructor, did. Exodium, if you could give us a breakdown of
Sure.
what Carl does and why he's so cool.
So, 2 reasons he's amazing. 1, he's a well-statted 2/3 follower for 3, which wasn't really present. And it adds a sigil as opposed to taking away a sigil, right? So that's the first big main effect. So the other ones were Runic Guardian and Hero of Nightfall, and those killed a sigil to gain benefits. Carl's the first one that actually gains and is also good. And his benefit, the second good part about him, is that he has life gain. Now, life gain is as important to an aggro deck as every other deck, but in an aggro deck, you don't really need to heal for those huge amounts like you see Haven or Dragon Heal, that kind of thing, because it's being aggressive. It only needs to edge its opponent out just by a little bit, as we saw against the Sword deck. It only needed to heal a couple times to stay out of lethal in order to push forward in the endgame. So just that little bit gave it a whole new strategy in the endgame, which I love.
So we're going to jump into Underwear versus Crumsion here. What do you guys think is a matchup between Neutral Forest and Burn Rune? Do you have strong thoughts, Aya? Aya looks like he's in great thought
Give it
about
to us,
this.
Aya.
Okay.
Give it to
All
us.
right. We have seen so far multiple times Neutral Forest being annihilated. Okay.
I thought you
don't
really liked
expect-
Forest.
I don't expect a different result.
He's biased. He's biased, but he's correct in this instance, okay? He's correct.
The
Neutral
bias.
Forest seems kind of weak. Like, I even had a whole conversation with him about it in the middle of the game. Is Neutral Forest? I don't know.
It's a little bit rolly, right? I mean, there is a very strong curve that can hit in the mid game, right? Starting from the tree end, that is fairly effective, but it is very draw reliant, and you aren't running
Not good
things
against
like
Rune though. It's
yeah.
It's feeling
not
pretty
good against
lackluster.
Rune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, that means I would lean towards Underwear being favored in this matchup. So we'll see. We'll see. Forest lovers out there, watch closely because
Burn the forest.
do not burn the forest. Do
Burn
not
the forest.
do not let the forest be burned. It's not good.
Don't
you know,
burn the forest.
there's-
Are you anti-green, Aya? Come on, man.
No,
Burn
I'm
the-
not. I'm saying the class. I mean, we've seen it multiple times. It's been burned, okay? Accept this.
I'm
Accept
disappointed.
this.
I'm just.
Accept this.
Can somebody
It's
find
been burned
any number of
repeatedly.
articles talking about the effects of global warming, the harmful
my
effects
God.
that society has had upon the environment, and just start tweeting
EPA
them out to
over
Aya?
right?
Start tweeting those to Aya. Get him informed. Help this man understand how important nature and the environment is, not just to the globe, but to the human race. It's about saving ourselves.
Right.
We need clean air, Aya. Okay, we need clean air. Anyway.
To this match. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So let's get into the opening hands. It really feels like, I don't know what's happening here, but like people are just neglecting to play their swords first. I mean, this really tells me they've done their testing against each other, because not only do they know what lineups they have, they know what decks they're presenting first, and it's pretty streamlined across the board. This tells me that they believe that the Forest versus the Runecraft deck is pretty close to 50-50, but our experience has been much different.
Right. From what we've been seeing, Forest is, kind of holding its behind a little bit. It's been getting burned a lot. It's getting burned a lot, But we may see a little bit of a difference. I hope that we do see a little bit of a difference, because every time we've seen this matchup, it's just horrible. But maybe
look
this
at
will be
the hand that Crumzion has, right? Like the curve looks awful. There's not really anything called Aaron, and this is the first time we've actually seen Illusionist play with the Witch's Cauldron on the early game, and there's a Carl to back it up. So this is about as good as an early game as you'd want from Underwear side of things, and he has the Wizardess to back it all up.
Yeah, so Crumzion's hand is what I would define as dumpster. Okay? Not good.
It's a good place for a forest fire, right? In the dumpster?
Right in the dumpster. That's right.
So, I want to make mention, this is one of the reasons why Carl's a lot better than the other 3 drops that used to be played in the deck, because something with, like, Magic Illusionist here. Now Magic Illusionist gets to be the prominent star of the early game. Now, if, say, for instance, this was Mage of Nightfall or Runic Guardian or something like that, that would actually pop the sigil, and then Magic Illusionist kind of just doesn't have value anymore. But now there's 2 sigils in play, there's life gaining happen, that Illusionist isn't going anywhere, there's sigils set up for later turns, just so much more advantage for Carl.
And he draws another Carl. I mean, this Illusionist is here to stay, okay? Here to stay.
Now, it's interesting to me that he decided to trade instead of going face, because I don't think trading does a whole lot. Maybe he wanted to protect his Carl. I don't really know if that's a huge deal before the Evo turns. I would have elected to go face here, but definitely a strategy to employ. I mean, keeping the board clear with Illusionist is never a bad move.
Well, the thing is, keeping the board clear against neutral Forest is exactly how you prevent Beauty and the Beast from being good. Because again, you're setting up those turns where they can't play it.
That's right.
So that's, I feel, is the right decision. Keep it clear, trade, you may as well get the value out of your Illusionist. There's no point in just sitting there and leaving your board clogged up if you're I can't even say the name. Burn Rune. And no point in leaving it clogged up. The thing with the sigils.
Sigil thing. Yeah, sigil stuff. Yeah. No,
yeah,
I actually agree with you. Yeah, if you can keep the board clear before Beauty and the Beast comes down, then it's, like you said, it's not really a big problem. And then Aaron's the biggest thing you have to deal with. And so far, as we've seen, Aaron's have been dealt with handily by the side of Burke. And so,
what feels really bad is that there.
That play.
Elf Twins Assault only doing 1 damage, not killing the Illusionist to pop the sigil, so he can trade into the Illusionist to get it off the board. He can't even do that.
The funny thing about this matchup is they both kind of have similar strategies. What I mean by that is, with Dirt Rune, you have to have sigils, and you have to have sigil breakers to get the most use out of all of your cards. So it's kind of like a 50-50 deck, right? You have to have the right things to do the right things. With the Forest deck, it's very similar. You have to have enough neutral cards to amplify your neutral cards, but you need to play enough of your Forest cards that are good. I mean, that's the whole reason to play Forest, right? Is because they have the good synergy with the neutral. But it's so far playing out that the sigils are just much more consistent. They used to be a lot less consistent, but like you said, Carl, the most important new piece of the deck is that it just gives it more early game sigils, and Telescope actually just lets you keep on curve filtering your deck, so it actually gives you more consistent Wizardesses in the late game. It just feels like a lot more consistent deck now, while this neutral Forest deck just seems like we've seen it many times just not be able to activate its cards properly.
Brick City. Okay,
that's right.
If you were building a city, you would start with neutral Forest right now. Okay, this is the foundation of brickery. Okay.
We should open up a school called just that, Foundation of Brickery, and then we can have Drzello be our professor.
No, man, he'd have to be the dean, bro. He'd have to
Okay,
be
you're
the
right.
dean.
He's the dean. He's right. That's right. He's the dean of admissions and the dean of the population of the school kids. You know what I mean? Like he's teaching you the ways of the bricks. Just in the general sense of things in the courtyard, and then you've got the big brick teachers in the classrooms. I like this.
Yep. Sweet. Okay. All right. Okay.
So the funny thing, I'll make mention of something that you actually brought up earlier. That would have been a perfect turn to do the thing that you were talking about with staircase into Beauty and the Beast to get value. But of course, we see the opposing board. You can't do that. You're literally just giving up the game.
Yeah, he's basically saying, you know what, man? I have resigned to my bricks. It's a wrap. Put me out of my misery. Yet another situation. You can't play Beauty and the Beast. I gotta hammer this into the ground. I gotta hammer it because
it feels like there's not enough early draw. That's what it comes down to. Like with Rune, at least Neutral Rune had Witch of Sweets and things like that, and we're not seeing a lot of the pure-hearted singers being drawn. Maybe they needed to up that number to 3, something like that. I can tell you one thing, Aya. You ready for this? In the locker room for Disastra, whoever made, basically there was a decider, right? Like, I don't think it was just all individual choice now that I've seen all their decks, not all individual choice to play Rune or Forest. I think there was a deciding factor of 2 key members in Disastra, and I'm just building tension here, that decided, you know what, Rune is better or Forest is better. Listen to me because I'm correct. And whoever decided that neutral Forest was it is probably going to get beat up later today. I can feel it.
We're gonna see some stomp marks.
That's right.
It's gonna be like, hey man, people get on me about what happened at Care Package. Sorry for your legs, man. But whoever, but for whoever, whoever thought that Forrest was gonna be doing it, man, they're probably gonna be taking quite the beating.
Yep.
After this tournament's over, because we're seeing Forrest get curb stomped into dust. Okay.
Yeah, we don't actually talk about Care Package anymore. Okay, like. On one of the last casts, Arthur asked me about him. I said he's doing fine, but we haven't seen him around very often, and it's probably because in our secret meeting after he lost last season, things happened to him, but no details. Just pray, keep him in your prayers.
Yeah, keep him in your thoughts. He might be back. He's supposed to be back because he might
recovery
be back.
Time and all that.
Yeah, we don't know, but you know what? Keep them in your thoughts. Keep them in your prayers. You know what? Even hit 1 in the chat for supporting Care Package.
That's right. Bless up for Care Package. That's right.
Hit 1 in the chat just to support Care Package, please. He needs some help.
So Aya, please tell me in your best Aya verbiage what just happened that match.
Crumbzion took, quite possibly, the biggest, juiciest L to the face.
Yes. Perfect. Exactly what I was looking for. Right on cue.
Right to the face. It went boom. L.
Yep.
Right on
the
face.
Little tiny boom dude. Not a big boom dude.
Not a big boom dude. Not a big
little tiny boom dude. Yeah.
Oh
right.
man, that
now
L like it hurt.
Lee can actually beat up
Lancer.
Anything. Yeah, Lancer? I couldn't think of that card off the top of my head. I was like, yeah, Lancer. That's it. Yeah, okay.
Well, this is the mirror, the neutral sword mirror. I'm not actually neutral sword. I'm sorry, mid sword mirror. So we're gonna see how this plays out. I think Crumbzion played this matchup the last time very well. So maybe he could carry that again to this. But the next game, he's gonna be forced to play. If he wins this game, he's gonna be forced to play neutral
right.
against this deck that we've already seen get cursed.
Demolish it. Yeah, demolish it. Because Beauty and the Beast isn't even a good factor against Sword, and that's the biggest thing that neutral Forest has. So, I don't know. Now, I would actually say that being on the draw in this matchup is actually better. Like having the extra Evo. They have so many cards that utilize Evos very well in the deck, and having that extra one in the late game really matters. And they're not doing this all-out aggressive plan. As you see, there's board trading, there's not full aggression to face, that kind of thing. So I think having the extra Evo point actually gives Crumsy a little bit of a leg up here.
Yes. Sword is one of the classes that uses Evos incredibly well. Like, there are certain classes that don't really use Evos that well. Like, for instance, Haven.
Forest.
I mean, they have Forest.
Forest.
Right.
All right. Excuse me.
But, I know, just a little bit of a cough you had there.
Yeah.
It sounded a lot like Forest, but it couldn't have been right. So, but Haven doesn't necessarily use Evos super well as Sword does. And same with Rune. Rune uses Evos really well. It has Levy. That's quite possibly one of the best, if not...
It's the best. It's the actual best.
In game,
Well, okay, Albert fights for it a little bit. Albert's a really good Evo target as well.
That's later in the game, man. Like,
yeah.
Straight utility. Levy, 100%.
White Paladin might be coming up there. I mean, we see the number of White Paladins in these mid-sword decks, and they've been putting in a lot of work today, especially alongside Mars. That's not to be forgotten. I just realized that just in a previous game. So now you guys know it too. Lots of value.
Yes. White Paladin showing how good it is right now, especially in this particular style of meta where there is a ban. Because White Paladin wouldn't be so good against PDK. As we've noticed, every dragon deck banned. No one wants to fight that. They're like, no. So they're like, we want to play fair and honest games. Okay? So we're playing mid swords and burn runes, and I don't know how honest burn rune really is. But we're playing those. Let's go. And I'm actually really, as I said before, and I am repeating myself when I say this, but I am very happy to see this iteration of Sword getting played.
Yes,
very happy.
Yes. It really just means that they were the next step up. Like, EU was still on the aggro Sword plan, maybe not even really that much on Sword at all in general, actually. Trying to focus on PDK, but we saw PDK all day yesterday on the EU side of things. Players today, they really have a concise game plan. Ban PDK, beat aggro Sword, and then whatever other comfort deck that I have, and or the team captain divided in the locker room telling him what to play, that kind of thing. So that's definitely a real thing. I'm making that a real thing.
I can imagine them saying, don't play this Forest deck was one of the discussions that took place.
Yes, and the other discussion was don't play this Rune deck, it's terrible. And then some of them won, some of them lost. That's how it goes.
Somebody might just take a, L to the face.
That's right. A big juicy one at that.
A big juicy L to the face. All right. Don't forget that. Okay. Right. So we're seeing Council of the Card Knights. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna let you go ahead. You already said the name of the card. Please go.
All right. So Council of the Card Knights, as we see, even in the mid-sword list, we see it a lot in the aggro list. Even in the mid-sword list, it's even better in the mid-sword list because it creates a board. It's a nice big board, and those stats are no joke. Okay, 1-3, all of them across the board, different abilities. The ward obstructing things right now, that card is crazy value. And even
I'm not gonna lie, 3/9 is bigger than Goblin Mount Demon. I'm just gonna put that out there.
3/9 is bigger than Goblin Mount Demon, 100%. And for those who are wondering what 3/9 means, okay, it means that they're in combination, all of their stats together equal 3/9. All right, not that they're 3/9s, obviously.
Right.
Right.
If they were all 3/9s, then the world would burn and nothing would be left. So
there really wouldn't be Forest because you would never beat that deck with 3/9. He summoned on 5, like never.
No.
Okay.
That would not be fair.
But Staircase is obviously, that's another reason why this card is super good. The tokens create more ways to reduce the cost or the value of your I'm sorry, not your cost, the countdown of Staircase.
So you've got Geno, you've got the tokens Geno presents, you've got Council of Card Knights, you've got Roundtable Assembly, you've got Alweda's Commands, you've got White Paladin, all of these cards that just generate huge boards that just help you proc that Staircase so fast. And getting extra cards in this deck is, again, like we've said, one of Sword's weakest things in the past. It never had a good way to get card advantage. And now with Staircase opening up this late game, it's really hard to actually hope that your opponent doesn't have an Albert to end the game with anymore. It's like literally impossible.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I would say about Staircase, another reason why it's incredibly good in Sword, is that Sword is not a class that runs a ton of spell, right?
Right.
So, it pulling like a bunch of followers allows it to play multiple things in a turn, like the cheaper followers rather. It allows it to play multiple things in a turn, allows it to just do really, really well in these long, drawn-out games, especially like what we're seeing right now. And Crumzion is in a lot of trouble, okay?
A lot of trouble.
A lot.
Very behind. When you're at 20 and your opponent's less than 10, and this is a sword mirror, it feels really good. Now, I said that Crumzion had the advantage because of more Evo points, but he hasn't been able to present the board states that Underwear has. He hasn't had the same number of Council of Card Knights and things like that. So it's been a lot harder for him to use his Evo points effectively, and so much so that Underwear still has one left.
Right. And to add injury to insult, Underwear just has so many more cards.
Yeah.
So many more
the
cards.
Staircase pop, yeah, plus the Evo point left. This game is all but over.
Lock it up. Throw away the key.
My bad.
And
Underwear
he says,
knows he got a BC draw.
Yeah. He knows. But despite that, he still played the matchup the way it should have.
Yep.
Still played it the way it should have been, despite having the the okie doke draw where you just your opponent can't stop it. They're just done. Pack it in. And Crumzion decided to just he can't fight another day because it's over.
Take a very honorable bow out of that matchup. So Underwear coming in late, taking over.
Underwear is making the run. He might be our first return competitor, but defeats Crumzion, and Crumzion is out of the tournament, which means that we have just one less Disaster member in the running. I would, in just a few moments, when we pull up that bracket, let's all take some time to count how many Disaster members are left in the tournament. I'm pretty sure currently 100% of the participants are of Disaster. Let's see. All right. Winners end, we've got Disaster DV8 versus Disaster Eplicus. Lower semifinals, we've got Underwear and Belaine, both from Disaster. The only person on this bracket right now who is not part of Disaster is Lekka.
Yep.
The only person. I don't think I have seen a tournament that has been this one-sided ever.
Yeah.
Even
I've
last week when it was the Mana Surge week, when we had just a bunch of Mana Surge players in the finals, never have I seen 7 names. What is that? Is my math right? 7 out of the 8 names be Disaster. That's crazy.
Well, not only that, Rainey, but I guarantee you, if you pull this bracket just one more stage back, you would
It'd
see
be
a whole lot more Disaster there. Yeah.
Man.
I'm not kidding you. I know at least Eplicas beat, I believe, Chinchillas on the way up, who's also a member of Disaster. I'm assuming just how this tournament's going, that more of them team killed on the way up as well. So,
they're
unbelievable performance.
They just all of them flooded
like
in.
a bunch of bunnies. They just
That's right.
They're everywhere.
Everywhere.
They're everywhere. Okay, well, if you want to either become part of Disaster and have your name up there, or defeat Disaster, and you want to participate in some of these qualifiers, next week is the last week. So make sure, if you want any chance to participate in these particular tournaments, as well as a World Grand Prix, go to the website shadowverse.nge.io. That's where you can find all the information, sign up, play against these players, figure out what that schedule is, and know how to participate. That website is your method to do so. And our very own Aya Senpai has written some incredibly cool articles there that you can go ahead and take a read, when you're on the train, on the bus, when you're on the toilet.
Especially on the toilet. He's a good poop read.
Yeah, the greatest poop read.
Wow! I'll take it. That's a great compliment.
That's right. I know it is.
Go to the website. do it. That's the lesson of the day today. Go to the website. that being said, we're going to go to a short break, and when we come back, a short news segment about all the things that are happening. Hopefully you guys know what is all going on already, but we're going to make sure that everybody stays updated with all the cool happenings. The Southeast Asia Mobile Majors already finished, but you can definitely go check out those VODs. I think they're up there. But really cool. Got to see Ignidius over there, and some other really cool, like Manasir's Bjorn as well was there. So very fun, but we're going to take a little bit of a breather, get ourselves prepared for this disaster. And when we come back, more Shadowverse Open. did see you there. I guess we're back. Man, that's always so... I was gonna like pop out of my notes. Hey, we're in the news segment. Lots of interesting news. Hope you guys had a very nice 5-minute break. It never feels long enough. I feel like I have to waddle off and get done what I need to get done and then waddle back at maximum speed.
Right.
Maximum penguin velocity. But first line item that we would like to talk about is TwitchCon. It's coming up really, really soon. It's going to happen next week, October 21st, or rather October 20th, I believe is the first day. But we're going to be at TwitchCon, and there's going to be the Shadowverse Streamer Showdown. That's Kriparian, Tyze, Justin Wong versus Reynad Hafu and Eloise are going to go on stage and play a little bit of Shadowverse just for fun, just for funsies. And it's going to be a good old time. We have a few people out there that are going to hang out, talk about the game, and there's going to be a booth there. The first 100 people that go to the booth have the opportunity to get pins that are about yay size. Yay size. I actually don't know how big they are. Maybe about that big. And they're going to have Rowan, Daria, and the Bellringer Angel. One of those three. And each of them have a voice line on the back. I believe it's Hear the Dragons Roar, With a Bang and a Boom, and Dinger Donger. I think those are the three lines that's on there. But very exciting. If you are in the area, Long Beach, California, make it down there to TwitchCon. Cygames is a gold sponsor of TwitchCon, so very exciting stuff. You're going to see a lot of us down there. It's going to be a ton of fun. I love it whenever we get to meet fans.
Yes.
Talking about community stuff and events, things like that, Battlefy is going to roll out their Shadowverse support program. So community tournaments will be officially prized. Vials for tournament organizers and people who want to run their Shadowverse tournaments. So if you're looking to make scrimmage tournaments just like Disastra does, or if you're looking to run your own community tournaments for your own kind of organization and whatnot, then you get vials. You can prize out your participants and reward them for the hard work and time that they put into the game. That's going to be starting October 16th. So make sure to go to Battlefy to see more information about on how that works and what that all entails. But very, very cool stuff. Excited for the community tournaments to get a little more support and have a little more presence in the community. And I think Starforged Legends has done a good job of kind of revitalizing that. I'm sure you guys, Shadow Nexus, run a bunch of events, don't you?
We have,
yeah. We run a couple. Yeah, we might run a few more.
We've been known to run a couple of tournaments. I don't know.
a few, just a small little thing here and there. Other things that are coming down the pipeline, but not quite as immediate. Of course, PAX Australia down in the Oceanic region. Shadowverse is showing up, so make sure you show up too. PAX Australia is going to be a great time. Shadowverse is going to be there, and just like I said, going to be a lot of fun to kind of meet additional fans and people in your local area that love playing the game and sharing that experience. It's always a ton of fun going to these expos. At least the Shadowverse booth is. Just hanging out, playing games, getting some promo cards. You saw in the Southeast Asian Mobile Major the Starforged Legends promo cards. They had Prime Dragon Keeper. They had Perseus. They had a bunch of really cool cards.
Ridiculous stuff.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
so PAX Australia is definitely something that you want to attend. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be there. I wish I could. It's really far, but
it's in Australia.
I'm gonna tell you guys, if you miss out on going to these events, you miss out on exclusive things that you can't get.
You have
anymore.
some that are unopened?
I have plenty that are unopened.
I have unopened.
I run through the lines, too. You know what I mean? Like I'm out there looking for those promo cards. No, I'm just kidding. I get a couple from friends that come out. They want to give you these cards.
Wow.
Like that,
you were trying to pretend to be one of the people. You were trying to be one of the sheep.
You should have stuck with it, man.
You're just a wolf with sheepskin.
But what I'm saying about them is you can't get them anymore. So the Starforged Legends are going to have a limited release, right? So if you don't get them while they're hot, you're not going to be able to get them anymore. So go out to as many events as you can, get the promo cards, come see us, come say hi, and play some Shadowverse. You like doing it anyway? Come get some free promo cards.
So if you're in the area of Australia, go down to PAX Australia. If you're in the area of Europe, Paris Games Week is going to be happening, and Shadowverse will be there as well. So that's your opportunity over in that region to attend an event. Paris Games Week. Going to be a lot of fun. More details coming out specifically about those two events soon, closer to the time of the events happening. But just so that you guys can get your minds around what you can expect there, And that's it. That's really all that's coming down the pipeline. Of course, the World Grand Prix is something that's coming, but we talk about that over and over and over again. Very relevant to this tournament, to what we're talking about right now. Very relevant in December. But let's take a look at the bracket and see how our tournament has fared today. Disaster all over the place. DV8, Eplicus in the upper finals. And then the lower finals is going to be Underwear and Belaine. So, what this means is Underwear could be the first repeat competitor from Season 2, making it through the bracket and playing once again in Season 3, but he has to go through Belaine, and then he has to go through the loser between DV8 and Eplicus, so he is 2 matches away. He just needs to win 2 more, and then he's in Season 3. Of course, between DV8 and Eplicus, they only have to win 1 match here, and they will be in Season 3. If they lose, then they'll have to win 1 more, but they're in a very, very good spot to make it into Season 3. I know a lot of their decks have been incredibly similar and very familiar. Is there any particular player that has stood out to either of you guys as like, this is my favorite player out of this whole roster? I feel like that's a very difficult choice to make, but Exotic, do you have somebody in mind?
It's easy for me. So I think that DV8, it's his time to shine. He's been a competitive player for a long time. He's been a man of the community for a long time. He's put in a ton of work. I think this is his time. I'm rooting for him.
What about for you, Aya?
I mean, DV8 would be my pick, but to be completely honest, it's just they all brought the same type of lineups. You know, it's kind of hard for me to. It's kind of hard for me to be like, well, that guy, but then he's playing the same lineup. One of them.
Yeah, one if not 2. I think probably 2 out of the 4 are going to be able to go. So I mean, Disastrous showed up. They deserve the top 2 slots for their performance today, and realistically speaking, for their team, they're going to be happy with whoever makes it. So
we're going to be jumping into the losers finals or losers semis match first. That's going to be Belaine versus Underwear. And there's a part of me that hopes that one of the spots will have Underwear in them. Not just because I think having a previous competitor make it back would be really fun to see and see how he developed and changed, but also because I think in the pool of forest neutrals, it's good to see a little bit of diversity, see a little bit of Burn Rune. But I don't remember how many other players are running Burn Rune now, but he definitely did very well with it in these last few rounds that we saw. So maybe Underwear, but I'm very much in Aya Senpai's boat of, you know, at this point, Disastra as a team seem to have stepped up in a while, and I'm eager to see who will differentiate themselves even further by way of decision making and clutch, on-the-fly decision making. That is what this tournament has to offer. So very grueling, very tough format, but we're going to be jumping into the game as soon as we can. Belaine versus Underwear. What do you guys after kind of being around Disaster for so long and seeing some of the players here, have you guys competed against or with some of these players that we're seeing today? Is there any history that you guys have from your kind of, especially Exodium, from your competitive experience?
Yeah,
sure. I mean, I have a handful of like before Disaster formed is when I played against most of these people, because when they were formed, I was already doing the casting thing, kind of stepped down from the competitive side of things. But honestly speaking, all these players came from teams. Not many of them, except for, you know, the exception of like people like Eplicus and maybe Chinchillas that we didn't see in the top 8 and stuff like that, and some others that, of course, I'm not mentioning, are newer to the team. A lot of these players have been around for a long time. So yeah, in tournaments, I played against them a few times, things like that. Nothing too extensive, because when I do my testing, I go back to my cave, you know, and I test by myself. That's kind of what I do. But yes, I have definitely played against them. They've always been good competitors. They've always been good sports. I have nothing bad to say about them.
Well, Belaine, I have something to say about Belaine right now. That hand is dumpster, okay? Not a good
Both
hand.
of their hands aren't very good, but at least Underwear has a semblance of a curve here.
He can at least play cards.
Yes, he can play cards. And I think this is very fitting. I really think this is how not only this match is going to go, but the finals, because I believe from the losers bracket, I believe we're going to see one of the Dirt Rune decks actually go to the finals as well, because it has proven to be better than the neutral forest list. And this is the match. This is the match to actually key out for. So, can like who has the better matchup here? Who's tested better? Who knows how to play their cards better? I mean, it could just come down to the fact that Belaine might not actually have a good draw here, but we'll see if he can come back.
Well,
doing a
his
bad job.
draw's getting a little better. Like, it's a little
Mhm.
better. The thing is, he will be able to play in those later curves and later turns. Yeah, he's got the Levy. He's got the Wizardess, Dance of Death. He's got a Sigil in the event that he needs it. Of course, he's going to need it for the Levy when he plays that. So he's got things that he can do in those later turns. Question is, how much damage is he going to take on the way there?
Exactly. And now this is kind of an odd turn because you want to dance here, but if you dance here, you can't Master Mage with full effect next turn. If you go Witch's Cauldron into...
just dance.
You just dance, yeah.
I think
It's definitely the safest
option.
option.
That damage there. Yeah,
Because
you can't
if
leave
you
damage
Witch's
like
Cauldron into Telescope, you are going to cycle through 2 cards, but you still might not find an option to deal with this board, so it's a very unsafe move.
I would snap dance, okay? I'd be breakdancing right now, okay?
Oh, he's going for it.
Doing that at all. He's not doing that at all. He said, you know what? I'm taking a risk, and I guess
he got there. He got there. Barely.
He got rewarded. That could have been disastrous.
Disastrous.
Yeah, I tried not to say it.
That's all right. That's good. I like puns. Good ones are good. I dig it. So, okay, here's something that we can talk about. So, let's just say that the meta is defined now. PDK, Burn Rune, Midsword. That's the meta that you have to watch out for. Now, I would say, if you're a competitor, you want to play next week, don't go home and copy these decks, you know what I mean? Just card for card and then just expect to win next week. What you guys have to be thinking about, and you can add to this, is what are they going to do as the next evolution? So if they assume that a lot of people are going to start bringing these mid-range decks, they're probably going to develop into a later game control style of a lineup so that they can counter what this week's meta is. Now, there is a second level on top of that where they could say, okay, that's where people are going to think we move, and then we're going to just shuffle right back on down to aggro because people aren't going to be playing the mid-range, and they're going to go 2 levels above. It's a huge convoluted thing the way metas line up, but Aya, what do you think about that? What do you think people should be thinking about for next week?
Well, on the point of the meta thing, this is actually what makes games what they are, okay? Metas. The decision-making, what level of decision-making you're willing to make in order to achieve your goal. That's what makes these games as, complex as that. Now, I know some people may go, well, Shadowverse is a simple game. Okay, in general, it is. But when you start seeing how people are evolving the meta, and Disastra being a perfect example of that, you start seeing maybe things aren't so simple. So, on to the thing of what people should take away from that. I think what people should try to do is strike a little bit of a balance, all right? They can bring lineups that can kind of hedge against the different types of decks they know they're going to be playing against. So if they feel that people are going to stay in this mid-rangey kind of thing that's going on right now, they can choose to go, instead of playing in, this mid-range thing, I'm going to bring a control deck. Okay?
Right.
So it will make things a little harder to ban out. Whereas you see, like right now, people all ban PDK. They did not want to fight it. So let's make our bans a little bit more difficult. Let's say someone doesn't bring PDK. They bring a deck and they know if they fight against PDK, they're just going to ban it. So they bring decks that are going to be good in those other matchups that they may be fighting. That's where the meta, the whole shifting of meta takes place. And that's why I love card games.
Yep, and it's honestly, to be thinking about it, do what Disastra did. Plan to ban a class, and then build your other 2 decks to fight what you think will be left over. And if you think that mid-range is the way it's going to go, like we're seeing right now, you build a control deck in there, maybe, like an Aegis Haven, or maybe a Control Blood, or something that you've tested that fares well against these mid-range decks. And then you make the bans really hard. If you ban my PDK, you have to go up against my control deck. That'll probably bust up both your mid-range decks. So maybe you have to let PDK through and just hope that it doesn't beat you. So, just make it tougher and tougher each week. Don't just copy what you see.
Oh, this feels like he doesn't have lethal right now, and not only that, he can't even clear board. So nothing he does cleared his board.
It does not. Now I would say
sitting on board.
I would say honestly, his go for the throat type of moment here is just a Halo Golem face and pray.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a better option.
I would agree. I'd agree to that.
Because if you play the Master Mage Levy here, you're not going to have the Sigil next turn for the Halo Golem. So.
Mm-hmm.
that's a no-go in my mind. I feel like you just put it down, you pray, and then that's that. Because if you do any other move here, you're scooping it up. As a matter of fact, there's not even another play. You can't kill any of the followers here. And yeah, that's exactly what he's doing.
Now,
so we see 5 plus 8. We're at 13. We're one damage
he's
shot.
one off. Yeah, he's one off. So what he could do to get that 1 damage is he could play the sigil, then play, or we could do the not.
Wow.
Wow.
That I don't like. Not going for the win here is
questionable at
rough.
best.
He could have sorceried face, played the Witch's Cauldron, played the Wizardess, and hoped to get one other spell on top of his Piercing Rune to win the game this turn.
Right.
In this case, he's just saying, you know what, if you have 1 more damage, I'm dead. And he's got 2 followers in play, so it's very likely that Dance of Death, Piercing Rune, any of these cards that deal damage are relevant.
Yeah, it would have been very good in that instance, but unfortunately, that's not the line he chose, and he draws another Master Mage Levy just to add injury to insult. So, Underwear taking the first game pretty decisively.
He knew his game plan. I think Belain stumbled a little bit there. I think he didn't think that turn out as well as he should have, and just go for the win.
Well,
because honestly, worst case scenario, if that Crimson Sorcery went face and then the Wizardess came out, you can still clear board with your followers. So I think going for it is even a safer option because you already have a way to clear the board. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Belain was thinking there.
Well, unfortunately, though, as we saw, like Belain just kind of suffered from not having a good start. His hand was really bad. And, I mean, it got a little better as the game went on, but by that time, Underwear had already solidified the board, and he had all the options that he needed. It was just not much that Belain could have done.
As far apart as those opening draws were, though, Belain still had a chance to win that game. It was a small one, but he had a chance.
He kind of, in a way, well, not even in a way, he really did end up throwing it by not attempting to go for the win.
Yep. But moving on to this game, one thing that I actually want to make mention of, I don't know really how big of a deal this is, but all of the Disaster players never follow up with the same deck they just lost with. Maybe it's like a mental thing that they've been talking about with each other. Maybe it's a very specific mindset they have about playing the same deck twice in a row, especially if you lost with it, maybe just to mitigate tilt. But it's interesting to notice that all of the Disaster players have been doing this. If they lose with their deck, they go to their mid-sword deck, and then they play their other deck again if they win.
Well, I would say this, that tilt is a real thing, and anyone who claims they're not affected by it is lying through their teeth.
You're a robot, and or you played 10,000 plus hours of whatever it is you're doing, and you just really don't care anymore.
Right. Tilt is a real thing, and when you take a loss, especially in a tournament, with the deck that you built and all that, it can be a little tilting. I just drew a bad hand. I don't really want to play that, because that's what happened with Belain. So him switching it up, I think is actually good. I don't think it's bad that he did that. And right now we see that this Hedgehog is putting in WOR.
Lots of work, yeah. I'm glad Hedgehog finally has its time to shine. Like I always thought that was one of the better sword cards, and it hasn't really been getting a lot of love. But in mid sword, it feels so solid. It's just 3 toughness is a lot. Getting extra power just over the course of the natural thing that sword does, which is trade the board, is really good.
Oh my goodness, this is so disgusting.
Yeah, this is great.
This is wow. That just felt like it hurt my soul.
If you ever wanted to turn off Roundtable Assembly, this is how you do it.
And then he gets to do it.
Repeat.
He's like, yo, man, mine's better, bro.
That's
I
right.
get to go second.
Mine's better. So forget what I said. This doesn't shut off Roundtable Assembly. This makes it even better.
Wow. So we're just seeing the mirror plays, and I have a very big appreciation for that.
Now, there's something I want to point out. Now, is this inherent with Roundtable Assembly? Because we know that it can pull 2 Juliets, right? We've only seen this pull Mars and White Paladin. We've never seen it pull double White Paladin. We've never seen it pull double Mars. So do you think it's inherently built into the card that it tries not to if it can?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there has been times where like I pulled double Cinderella, but that was only like once, I think. But yeah, I think it does. I think
it's gotta be random. But I want you guys to tweet at me, or tweet it anywhere, Shadowverse Game. Just let us know what your experiences have been with Roundtable Assembly. If it most of the time pulls two separate cards, if it most of the time pulls two the same cards for you. Because honestly speaking, in this competitive environment, we haven't seen it double up really. Now that could just be random.
Yeah, it could be random, but oh my goodness, Mars is so cool, man. Like,
Mars is great. We get to see the full effect on both sides of the table this game of just what Mars is doing to this board.
Yeah, Mars just obliterated that board. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
My goodness. Oh, just when you're like, underwear's in a lot of trouble. Never mind. Just kidding.
Never mind.
I was just playing, man. Nah. He's okay. Just draws White Paladins when he needs them.
I want to say this is a huge reason we're seeing it now more than we have in the past few games. But I bet you this is a big reason why this sword deck has been winning so much today is because if they're playing against aggro all day, look at what this board does. Look at what Mars plus White Paladin does. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, disgusting. And I want to actually kind of go back to something we were talking about earlier in Luminous Mage. We, again, as we said, that it was always a mainstay. It was something that we always saw in this player. We're not seeing that anymore. And the reason we're not seeing that anymore is right now, what we see on the board. Okay.
So many other good cards to be playing.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Underwear, stop it. Leave him alone. Leave him alone, man. He's your teammate. He's your teammate. Oh, it pulled out two White Paladins. So,
here we did, but multiple Mars have already been played and died.
Right. Yeah. But yeah.
Like I guess the better way to ask the question is if there are 3 White Paladins and 3 Mars in your deck, how likely is it to pull one of each? Obviously, it has the best odds to. But yeah, I'm almost positive that it's got to be completely random. We just have been seeing this end of the spectrum of it, but.
White towel thrown in, get it over, wrap it up.
Underwear, just showing that his White Paladins are better.
And that's very reminiscent of whenever you watch mirror matches. There's that element, in Dragoncraft mirrors. It was like, oh, you Bahamutted? I'm gonna Bahamut your Bahamut, and now you're gonna Bahamut, but I'm gonna get the last one. That was very much like the White Paladin flooded the board on Belane's side, and then the White Paladin that followed afterwards was just, oh, now you have more followers on board. I get more, I get more wars than you do. Right. And Underwear ended up taking the victory there. And this is perhaps one of the few times where you start to realize, like, wow, that extra evolution orb really made a big difference, and it's been a long time since playing second was a really big advantage, because having that extra flood of the board, at the end there he drew 2 White Paladins but couldn't evolve to clear board as well as gain those tokens. Really, I think affected Belane's chances in that match, and even kind of baiting him into playing the first Roundtable Assembly as well, being ahead of the play points and playing reactive really helped Underwear in that scenario. How'd you feel about that match, Exo?
Great match. That's exactly what a mirror match should look like. And like I said in the previous matchup, if you're on the draw in that matchup, you're probably at a strict advantage because of how well they can use their Evo points. And if you notice, there's a stark difference from old Midsword. They're not running Floral Fencers anymore. They're running White Paladins. So they feel like that card is a much better use of their Evo than a Floral Fencer is. So something to take note of, guys.
And especially now, I think in the current meta where there's so much kind of board presence with just kind of trying to rush down and fill the board and kind of be really sticky with it, that White Paladin definitely seems like the appropriate response. But Underwear will move on, and that means Belane is out of there, and that's going to mean that we're going to have to hop up to DV8 versus Eplicus, and DV8 definitely the veteran player here in this particular lineup. Belain, also an older name, but now is out of the tournament. So is Crimson. So a lot of these kind of more titled players have been removed from the tournament. And again, remember, Eplicus is that player who had been participating in tournaments, but this is the first big performance of the NGE Shadowverse Open that he's seen for himself. So just one match making the difference between guaranteeing your spot in Season 3 or possibly having to try again next week. But Aya Senpai, we're about to talk about the World Grand Prix. $120,000 US. How many packs would you buy with $120,000 US?
Zero. I wouldn't spend any of that money on packs. Okay.
Are you serious? What about the
really?
Daria leader?
I don't care about that, man. Like,
What?
that's you. Okay. I don't care about that.
To be
I don't
fair,
even like
the
Daria,
reason
alright?
I is saying that is because he's already put $120,000 into packs. Okay.
Oh no!
Let's be
Oh, I
fair.
haven't
He would
put that
use
much
that to
money
recoup
into
his
it.
losses.
Yeah, you know what? That's true.
Well, the World Grand Prix, December 23rd through the 24th. All different regions, Europe, North America, Korea, Taiwan, Japan are going to be there. The top competitors from each region going to compete in a local area network tournament, a LAN tournament in Tokyo, Japan. Very excited for that. These players are trying to get their spot in there, playing the qualifier, gets them into the season, gets them to compete in the Contenders Cup, and the top 3 get to go. So, that's what's on the line here. And between DV8 and Eplicus, I wonder who will make it. If at all, because there's still the 6 Season 2 competitors as well, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's gonna be rough.
So we're about to jump into the match. And, yesterday Sheepy actually brought up an interesting point. He kind of threw down the gauntlet a little bit. He said, hey, these players, they're playing too fast, and it didn't suit his tastes. And then he also added on, he said he still has not seen a player that could match up the 6 Season 2 old school players, that couldn't match the level of competition that they had. Right? He felt like the 6 older players were playing smarter, were playing more careful, were more risk averse, and were just more well thought out in terms of their playstyles. Do you think that's true for North America? Based off what you guys have seen today, and maybe we'll start with Aya, do you think that's true of these qualifying players? Do you think the 6 players that have remained from Season 2 are still kind of the more elite, or do you think there's very much a potential for these players to take over?
I think that there's always a potential for players to take over. And I do agree with Sheepy to a point. That we have seen, and I was watching the Euro qualifier yesterday, we do see people playing like really, really fast. And when you play like super fast, that leads to more misplay. So I feel like these guys, they're new. They need to be introduced to playing slower because they have to be forced to. And by playing in competitive play, you will learn to do that. So I don't think that's something that should be held against them in the sense of, okay, they're amateurs. Everyone started there, You only get better by continuing to do it. That simple.
So we'll see. Those are Aya Senpai's thoughts on it. And we'll see. Definitely North America has the 2-time back-to-back winner. And actually, in very many ways, both Les and Jay-Z are consistently kind of at the top for 2 seasons in a row. We'll see if that's true for Season 3. But right now, just new faces. Underwear is still running on the lower end. But the 2 on the winner's end, the 2 most likely to have a spot into the season. Actually, one of them will definitely have a spot at the end of this.
Right.
Eplicus and DV8 starting off with that neutral forest versus sword matchup. Now, I know we've talked a little bit about this, but final decisions about this. Is DV8 about to get dunked?
Quite possibly. This is interesting. So Eplicus A decided to go with sword first, the only disaster player to do that, I believe. Also the only disaster player that we know of to run mid shadow, so the only kind of wild card out of it. And he's playing Floral Fencer, so kind of a different version as well.
Right. Now, I want to point out something. Yesterday for the EU qualifier, we saw Atomies.
Yes.
We don't see any Atomies.
No.
None.
I
Zero.
think it's because of
Zilch.
what happened with Atomy yesterday. it can be super powerful, but it can also brick a whole bunch in your top 8 games, and then you just lose with it. So I gotta say, like, Adamy's a great deck, wonderful deck, fun to play, and super awesome. But it can brick, and when you're playing in a tournament where you can't afford to lose games, you really want to be bringing a deck that has that high risk reward factor. You know what I mean? Like, you really want that in your lineup.
Well, now we're seeing just how amazing Hedgehog really is, because look at the value.
This is the pure form. This is every turn pumps. Let's go.
Yeah. Now I'm really digging the Angel of the Word here. This clears the board, gets rid of the Hedgehog. Gotta get rid of the Hedgehog. Love the animated Angel of the Word. Sweet. Love my animated cards.
Doing its best Lyrial impression for one more play point.
Well, I don't know. It's in some cases it's better than Lyrial.
Of course, it can be, but it should be, right? It costs one more play point. But technically speaking, if that was a Lyrial, could have played an Actress Fairy alongside of it. But as we've been seeing the Disaster players, they like to keep the cards in their hand. This is, you know what? This is actually what makes the neutral version of the Forest deck look really weird to me. You're playing Farias, you're playing Lyrials, you're playing a bunch of low-costed followers that tend to work better on the aggressive side of things, but then you're holding them in your hand to make Beauty and the Beast bigger, and then you just have a bunch of dumpy cards late in the game. It's there's like everything about this neutral Forest deck I just don't like right now.
Well, DV8 is the only one of them left with the neutral Forest deck, and he is in the winners finals. So maybe there's something to his play that's just a little different than everyone else's, you know?
Either that or his Elf Twins Assaults actually deal 2 damage instead of 1, which is awesome.
Oh, that hurts.
Or more.
That hits the soul, brother.
Doesn't even go with it. Interesting.
No?
Saving the Elf Twins for bigger game.
Yeah. Well, I think that's not necessarily bad, especially when you might need against Council of Card Knights, for instance, or Mars. You know, you're gonna need to be able to deal with that. You know, playing. You know,
I'm still on my first thought from a week ago, where I would just ban Sword. You know what? I think actually right now Sword might just be the best deck in whatever iteration it is, and I would never say this. Okay, this is not something I would just say. I think that you can plan to beat PDK much easier with a control deck than you can any version of Sword right now because of the value that each and every individual card generates. Council of Card Knights, Round Table Assembly, Alwitas, White, like if you're playing the more mid-rangey version of it, White Paladins, and, you know, the Round Table Assembly into that combination with Mars. And then you've got Aggro Sword that has all this crazy, the same stuff, just doing it a lot faster and a lot more damage. I just don't want to play against Sword right now, man. I really don't.
I cannot in any good conscience disagree with you. But if I had a choice, I'm a little different than you. I would ban PDK. I would just take that, but I'm a control player, so like I would immediately ban PDK for that reason. And I'm the type of guy that would bring a double control lineup. So
that's fair. So you actually think that control would fare better versus Sword decks, whether it be aggro or mid range?
I think it depends on the way you build the deck. I would rather fight the matchups that I would have a better chance at winning. I would have a better chance at beating the aggro decks because they're incrementally building up to damage, and control decks, at least the way I build them, tend to handle damage like that better. Okay, but when you're
the PDK
playing
with Fortes and okay, I see what you're saying.
Dragons, and even the aggro variation with them running Hippogriff Riders and Phoenix Rider Ionas and all that, there's tons and tons of burst damage that you can't really hold off. I'd rather not fight that. I'd rather fight the Sword deck.
That's interesting. See, that's interesting to me. Like, I've built a few decks. Sword was actually one of them. I think what's weird to me is I have a different version of Sword, but the Sword deck did okay against PDK. I think that Haven actually right now against PDK is just bonkers. I think you can build a proper Haven deck around Aether of the White Wing to beat PDK consistently, and I think it's a really good option right now. And I don't think anybody's really exploring that option right now because they think it's so weak. But if aggro Sword becomes not a part of the meta, I think it's an easy shift into. Or if you plan on banning.
Well, just a little bit of a thing. Like, Exo and myself have been playing this Haven list that's actually been performing incredibly well against PDK. So it's certainly possible. Ooh, nice.
Yes, certainly possible. And honestly, it doesn't take you too long to figure things out, right? Like if you understand what a deck does, like this was a brainchild of mine at like midnight, a couple days ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I was just like, you know what? These cards clicked in my head. Boom. All I can say to you guys is Aether of the White Wing, Triple Taurus the Great. Figure out the rest for yourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't even play Aegis.
That's
Don't
right.
even do it.
Don't play Aegis. Don't play it. It's a trap.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, let's get back to this game. We're almost to the end of it here. Beating the Beast actually able to stick on the board, but not getting that much value. Even an area here wouldn't matter too much.
No, it wouldn't. Well, it would actually. I stand corrected. It would actually matter because he would be able to heal it up, and he would still be able to attack again to clear something else because there's no way he's going face. Not with this board, especially knowing he's fighting against sword. So he would actually be able to. Actually, no. I guess clearing wouldn't really do much either.
Right, clearing one of the followers.
Yeah.
Council of Card Knights on the back foot. We got Lux on the back foot.
I mean, there's still Albert too,
Right, and Albert as a possibility. Plays out the Grimnir now for defense. I like this. Can't really wait 2 more turns for that guy to come into play.
Right.
I actually think starting with Lux here is a really good thing, and then you can finish with Council if you need to.
Well, yeah, he can trade in one and then play Council.
I like this. No Albert, but does get a front guard.
But yeah, front guard will definitely put in some work if he should choose to play
this
it. Now,
Mars. This Mars is actually a way better option with that whole soul swing. He can just do a whole lot more this turn.
Well, he can't get any actual... I guess he could trade in his board and then do the whole soul swing with that. So, yeah, he can do that. Certainly plausible. Oh, he's playing Council. Okay.
No Council.
This is fine, too. This is just
absolutely fine.
That's fine. And this is where the... Oh, my goodness. This feels awful.
I really want to know who they played against where this was like what deck does Neutral Forest beat, because at the moment it doesn't look like it beats anything, but then again we're obviously looking at a lopsided view of it where Disaster has all really well-tuned decks, but maybe they were just also really good against all the aggro decks. But I don't know, like Midsword not even being an aggro deck, just like being able to outpace and out aggro Neutral Forest the entire way.
Slaughtered.
Yeah, like that game was not even close. More cards in hand, more cards in play, more damage, just everything.
Yep. Lopsided. Yeah, Eplicus is playing like a man on fire right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He is jamming all the cards. He's handing out all the L's. He's doing his work. So Eplicus is doing. I think he's gonna do it, man. I think he's in.
I want to put you guys into the mindset of Eplicus right now. This is his first big major, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's on the precipice of getting invited to the biggest season of NGE yet, because it includes the World Grand Prix.
Right.
And this is his potential game to get there. He's sitting on the edge of his seat right now, sweating, guarantee you.
Yeah.
Wanting to win this game so badly. And this is really the position, like, there's no better feeling than this. Except for the fact right after you win it, right? This is the best feeling right before the winning feeling. Because, like, this is when you're in the moment. This is when your focus is at its highest. This is what you prepared for. Like, this is it, guys.
Right. Well, I will say that the last time we saw this matchup, didn't go so well for Forest.
Well, we've been saying that a lot, though, so.
However, I think, given the hand, it's plausible that he may have a chance. I actually want to point out one thing that I think may actually be holding this deck back, the Neutral Forest list. And it may not, people may be, what are you talking about, Aya? But I actually think that it's Dance of Death.
Yeah, it's too expensive.
Yeah, it's too
Everything
expensive.
else in the deck is expensive.
Yeah. Dance of Death, I feel, is holding his deck back. I get why it's there, but the thing is, if you're teching it against PDK and you're banning PDK, what does Dance of Death actually do? It does work against Atomy, so there is that. Yeah, there's that, but what else?
Maybe not even fast enough, though. You know what I mean? And it's not like it's Wizardess of Oz Runecraft where you can play those Dance of Deaths for a lot cheaper and, you know, get some tempo out of them. It's just a really slow card on top of a really slow deck. We're actually seeing Deviate play more cards in the early turns than we've seen the Forest decks play so far. He's actually got a realistic curve, which is dealing with what Eplicus is trying to do right now. So he's in much better shape than we've seen Forest in the past.
Now, if he draws a Beauty and a Beast, that would be really good right now.
This would be the time.
This would be the time to cash in all of your luck. Okay? You go up to the register, you're like, hey, I want to exchange these coins for some luck. Okay? Please. You know, I'll take 10 luck. Thank you. All right? This is the time. He needs
This is the time. Not only is it the right deck to have it against, it's the right turn to have it on.
Right. Definitely.
Because there's not going to be a way for that thing to be dead, specifically next turn, but now that we see Ektar in hand, the farther this game goes, the worse and worse Beauty and the Beast is going to get, as we've said before.
Yeah. So this is exactly the time that Beauty and the Beast is not in his hand. He didn't draw it.
He did not. So Carrots plus Staircase and an Evo.
Yeah, that sinking feeling.
Yeah.
It's
starting to tighten in.
Right? Yeah. You know,
well, this is the thing that I've been noticing about Neutral Forest again, is it has ways to stall. There's no way for it to actually win the game after it's done stalling. Like, yes, Dance of Death will clear something. Yes, Aaron will stall for a turn. Yes, the other Aaron will stall for a turn. But, like, where's the win? Like, how are you winning this game? And Beauty and the Beast has just proven to not be that win condition that it feels like it should be.
Well, I mean,
at least not in this version of the deck.
Well, there's the Beauty and the Beast, but it's not good here. Like,
going into the Ektar turn, it's really risky.
It's not good. Like, last turn would have been perfect. This turn, not so much.
Not so perfect.
Not only that, but Ceres, a very brand new card that Shadow got. That card is irritating. Okay, irritating. Clash, deal 2 to the enemy follower that the enemy that's attacking it, and at the end of the turn,
defending.
It's attacking into it or defending, right? And at the end of your turn, you gain 2 defense. That.
I like this line of play. This is actually the most board control he could have gotten. He actually gets to keep his carrot around, which is also good. Now, Ektar is going to be able to come out with full value, but I think this is a Thane turn. Basically, just build up another board for an Ektar.
Yeah, this is an easy Thane. He didn't even think about it. He's like, I know Thane right away.
Yeah, gets that white value, gets that Prince Catacomb value.
Yeah.
In an unbelievable position here.
And Hector doesn't even it does trigger his effect. I'm sorry, he has 3 neutrals, so he has the 2 carrots. So he does have that, but again, I think Aaron's really your only play here. You know.
Yeah.
I think Aaron's the play. And
Aaron's the only way. Yeah, that you can feel comfortable about going into the next turn. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a feel terrible play because you're like, well, I know he's probably got Ektar, but I have to do something, and he's going to take 2 damage from this, so he really only gained 1 health.
He's also going to take 2 damage off the Ektar token that's about to hit play, while also clearing the ward. Like, this is, let's see, so that's 2 damage, plus 5 is 7, plus 6 is 13, plus Evo is 15, so that's just lethal.
Yeah. It's a sad song, but this is exactly what we've seen Every time.
Somebody had to write it, and you know what, Deviate? that just happens to be you today.
Yeah. Somebody get the
But
violins and the
Applica's-
piano.
Applica's, man, doing it. First big tournament,
Yeah.
making it into the season. Great job, Applica's. Great job. Like, you are what we watch this for.
Epicus makes it into Season 3 on the winner's end of the bracket, is into the grand finals, and Deviate will now move to the loser's end. Could not make it work on Neutral Forest. One turn too late. I can't believe that Beauty and the Beast would have the nerve to show up on turn 7.
I know, right? What a jerk.
What is that all about? Beauty and the Beast is a great card. I love how big it can get. I love swinging with Ariete with it. And it's very fun, but sometimes it's just so hard. I mean, you already see how difficult it is to get something like Aegis down.
Sometimes, every time, these players have not been able to play this Beauty and the Beast effectively.
Seems like all tournament that has been a struggle. Let's recheck up on the standings here. Eplicus in the grand finals in Season 3. He will be our newest competitor, but still yet to be decided. Deviate has another chance at Underwear here. This is where stories are made. Will Underwear be the repeat, or will it be Deviate's time to shine? I know Exodium talked a little bit about that, but now it's all on the line. There's nowhere to turn anymore. There's no safety net to catch you. This is it. I mean, I guess your safety net is next week in the North American qualifiers again. But you want to really go back to the start of the tournament and try to get to this point again? I would think you want to just put it out now. Yeah. Really difficult. These players want to do that because the World Grand Prix is coming. Qualifying into Season 3 is your method of getting into the Contenders Cup, getting top 3. And that tournament is your ticket to Tokyo, Japan, December 23rd and 24th, competing for $120,000 US. That's what they're going to be shooting for. So, we're here now. Deviate versus Underwear. I feel like we've seen the same matchup over and over again today. But it's going to be Burn Root versus Neutral Forest. And we've already talked about this, right?
Yeah,
so,
ad infinitum.
So, instead, here is a question I pose to you. Between Underwear and Deviate, who would you rather see move on? And who would you think would be sent to next week to qualify again?
I'm going to have to go with Underwear.
Yeah.
I want to see the story. I want to see him come back.
Be the first one.
I want to see it.
He would be the first one. Is it the same for you, Exo?
Well, I told you before, I still want to see Deviate get there, but now knowing how these matchups go, I don't think he has a very good shot.
Oh no!
I think
everybody's turning on Forest.
If I was Deviate right now, you know exactly what I would do? I would not ban PDK, and I would ban the other third deck and just try to switch it up a little bit, because we already know that this isn't working for Forest. So just try something different. You know what I mean?
That's very smart.
I mean, at this point, what's he got to lose, right?
What do you have to lose here, right?
The big thing too is Beauty and the Beast just kind of PDK. It's like Superman to bullets. You know what I mean? PDK just tries to like shoot Beauty and the Beast, and it just goes off the armor.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if that's the case. And Dragoon Scythers as well don't really remove it that well. So
no, they don't. It shuts off PDK's stuff.
A lot of stuff. So Deviate, if you're listening, perhaps that is the method. But I'm sure they've thought of it as well. There must be some reason, right, that they're thinking. Maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe they're just like, oh, we saw PDK was pretty good. Let's ban it.
Yep.
That'd be my mindset.
PDK seems pretty good.
Get it out of here.
What do you think? So, just as some kind of thought experiment, right? We've seen a lot of neutral forest in North America today. Some decision that Disaster came to. In Europe, we saw a lot of aggro forest, either through way of fairy, elf song, beetle, or roach, or a combination of all of those. Do you think that forest list would have done better than neutral forest?
Yes, 100% it would have done. I don't know how much better it would have done, because Midsword is still insanely strong against a deck like that. So realistically, I think Sword the mid-sword version that they have built kind of just shuts Forest down regardless. And I don't know like how many good matchups Forest really has right now. This isn't a control meta where Roach takes over. This isn't a no ward meta where hyper aggro really goes crazy. It was a wardless meta last week, but it's not anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think Forest is actually at its worst point. The more wards that are in the format, the worse Forest gets because they rely on just being able to push damage.
Yeah.
PTP
take that,
Forest,
Arthur.
maybe. PTP Forest, okay? Maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah.
It's been a really
You
no
look at your
Bahamas.
paper, me.
No
Look
Bahamas.
at your paper, bro.
It's been a really long day. It's a lot of stresses today.
Forest taking those L's.
The set is really
Love
hot.
Forest.
Oh,
Forest, Arthur, you know
No.
this. Come on now.
Take it.
I can't handle this. It seemed like it was going so well for Forest, but we're about to jump
Right
into
to
the
the
match
face.
here. DVA versus Underwear. I can't. Please, Forest players of the universe, tell us how to win. But it's actually really good to see this mid-sword list come about because that aggro seemed unstoppable, especially for almost an entire month of this expansion now. Aggro sword has been dictating the pace of the game in very many ways, alongside handshaking PDK, but might be on its way out. Maybe mid-sword is a new fad. There's too little Gawain for my tastes and not enough Roland, but we'll see.
Oh, come on.
Stop it, Arthur. Stop
Stop-
it.
yeah, stop it,
you know
man.
that's our pressure point. Get out of here.
All right, here it is. Once again, to the battlefield. Neutral Forest versus
All right.
Sword.
Okay. So, immediately, what needs to happen, Deviate must find a way to stick a Beauty and a Beat. He must.
Or just draw a staircase. Thank you. Okay, I was gonna
there
say
you
like get
go.
an early staircase or something that we haven't released yet.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's got a curve. He's got a staircase. You can't really ask for a better starting scenario than this, other than already having the Beauty and Beast in hand.
Right.
But is looking good. Now, on the same token, Underwear does not have a bad hand either. He's got a 2-drop, he's got a 3-drop, he's got a 4-drop, and a 5-drop. He's got curve verse. You know what I mean? Like, just what you like to see when you're playing.
Right. You always want to see your curves when you're playing a very curve-heavy / curve-conscious deck. And Sword is by far the most curve-heavy / curve-conscious
And it
deck.
always has been. I doubt it. I doubt
You know,
that will
that's-
change.
Yeah. I mean, some people could make an argument for Aggro Blood, but no more than Sword.
Sure. Aggro Blood at
We
least
don't see
has
aggro-
ways to deal indirect damage. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Sword is
even
very
you can summon
upfront.
Bloodkin with Vanya, or sorry, Vinaya. Yeah, Vinaya. That's what we came to the conclusion of.
But even still, like, with that, it seems like right now, Sword isn't running out of gas, as much
Never.
or as fast as we would expect to see. They're not running out of gas. The Luxes, the Staircase, the Paradise, the 3 Alberts in hand right now. That was just completely random. I just saw that he had 3 Alberts. But the Luxes, the Staircase, the Paradise, those cards allowing Sword to just have cards all the time. Be able
Now,
to just
something I want to make mention of is the Evo of Geno there. It looks really obscure to do that, but it would have allowed for Illyrial to evolve into it to kill it and go face for extra damage.
right. I mean, he's sitting on like 3 Literals on the board, right? So
Right. This actually saved him points of damage by making him trade.
yeah. And the Staircase pops. So next turn, he may draw a Beauty and a Beast, and this would be yet another one of those times that if he draws it, it's gonna be good.
That's right, and he's going to draw exactly 4 cards, which would be exactly the threshold you need. But now there's all these wards in the way. You know what I mean? So this is rough days. This is quite literally the perfect draw that Forest could get, especially if the Beauty and the Beast happens right now, which it does.
Well, he got
So-
it. He got 2 of them. So
2.
Yeah.
Best possible scenario. If it can't win this game, don't play this deck, please.
Right. Right.
Please. That's all I'm going to say.
What he said. They don't do it to yourself.
I
Well,
know
actually-
it's got half of these players into top 8, and I'm still asking myself how.
Well, it could be that, remember, that the people that they were playing against, this deck would have been technical to play against You know.
That's true.
I don't know what they were playing though. I don't know what they were trying to tech against for neutral forest. I don't know. Wish I did, but he opts not to play the Beauty and the Beast.
Oh my goodness. When
I mean,
Beauty and the Beast? Just when?
Is he even gonna have another chance to play it? Especially
maybe
after
Beauty and the
this?
Beast wasn't active. Maybe he only had 2 neutral cards in hand actually off of that staircase. So maybe he couldn't play Beauty with at least the protection effect.
Oh, right.
To be fair, I don't
right.
I guess
I
it's
think I
relevant
still
because
played
of
it.
Council of Card Knights, but
I think I still would have played it.
I think the pump is good enough against Sword.
Right.
I don't think you necessarily need the protection. It's not like they're burning it or deathing it or anything.
I don't know what he's gonna do now. Like,
Yeah, now I have no idea the game plan.
yeah.
Because if Beauty and the Beast wasn't game 1 or wasn't like game plan number 1, then I don't know what his idea of finishing this game out will look like.
So I want to go back to something you said before. You were saying that Roundtable Assembly must randomly pull two commanders. Every time this game, we've seen it played twice. It's pulled White Paladin and Mark.
Yep.
Every time.
Every time.
So-
Now, like I said, it's the best odds to do that because obviously they're equal numbers in deck. But it's uncanny to me to see it this many times.
Right.
Like, I don't know, Disaster top 8, every single sword matchup, like one of each of the commanders, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, too much coincidence, it rocks my Matrix brain, you know what I'm talking about?
Right. I know how you feel, man. I have no idea. Maybe they figured that out. Maybe that's why they're running this lineup, because they
could
figured
be.
that out. You know,
They neoed into the Matrix, understood what they needed to do after reading the lines of code, and they were just like, okay, this is what's up. That is a massive Fangblade Slayer.
That's a big boy.
That's a big boy.
That's a big boy. That's a big dude right there. Yeah, you just pack it in, man. Pack it in.
So, one thing I want to make mention of, Deviate did not deviate from the plan and continue to ban PDK, and we're still seeing that. I don't know. I think it might have been a proper choice to just let PDK through and see if Force could beat that deck. I mean, it's got wards, it's got heals, it's got Beauty and the Beast to stuff up, PDK turns. It's got, I think, better tools to deal with PDK than it does to deal with any of these other decks.
Right. Yeah, we're seeing the Achilles heel for both him and Crumzion as this neutral forest list.
Yep. It's just crazy.
So,
like we haven't even seen it come close to winning a game yet.
Right. We've not only that, we've seen one Beauty and the Beast play that I can remember. It got dealt with, and then after that, it was like, well, that was a fun game.
Time to shine, Daria.
All right, so now we get to see it in action again. We've seen this matchup several times. Let's see if it will play out any differently. Now,
man.
Considering these options, so I know we talked about, identifying things that you want to be doing for next week, like how you want to be teching your decks, maybe the different levels of thinking you should go into on when deciding to build your decks. What control deck would you, Aya, right now build to handle, say, Midsword and PDK with a wild card that you might want to ban, or would you ban PDK and then have a control deck that you think could handle Midsword and, say, Burn Rune at the moment?
I would still ban PDK, but Control Blood. Because there is a card that is in Control Blood that I think is really good right now, and it's Blood Hungry Matriarch.
Interesting.
All of these really small, irritating followers that people would just jam in the late game, and you're like, I can't deal with this unless I rev. Blood Hungry Matriarch is like, there's your board, there's your face. Okay? So that would be my choice, especially after seeing this Midsword deck. Blood Hungry Matriarch would be dinner. It would be at dinner time, okay? Like, you would just see Midsword crying in a corner with Blood Hungry Matriarch. And I would be playing 3 of it because I would be like, if I thought that people were going to be bringing this Midsword list, I'd be playing Control Blood 100%. Board wipes for day. Okay, hungering boards.
Control Blood, definitely a great option. 100% agreed. Now, The one thing that's weird about what I was thinking is I think that Ramp Dragon looks phenomenal in this metagame right now. I believe it has a really good game against PDK, really good game against Midsword, really good game, especially good game against this control, neutral forest deck. And it can lose to Burn Rune, but it has enough heal to sustain itself, and it's more of a 50-50 matchup than anything. The problem is that it would take your PDK slot, so they could easily just ban your Ramp Dragon much the same, and then you're kind of in the same situation where before. You still need a control deck to play.
See, a Ramp Dragon list would not be an auto ban.
That's true.
Like, it wouldn't be an auto ban. Some people may look at it and go, I don't feel the need to auto ban that, because when you look at Ramp Dragon, you're like, all right, I could probably outrush him and this and another. Ramp Dragon has I think it has a decent matchup against Midsword, or at least the Midsword list that we've been seeing. Ramp Dragon would be amazing, like jamming Bahamut's against them, right?
Yeah, people aren't playing Sabakis anymore. They're not playing like a ton of stuff that can deal with the big dragon followers. So
this is like the weenie era.
Right.
Like if you look back at Magic, where it was like white weenie, that's kind of what I'm referring to in terms of like the reference. This is like the weenie era, like a lot of small, board filling guys, and this and that. So there are cards that are available that will allow you to deal with that stuff. And as I mentioned, Blood Hungry Matriarch would be my #1 go-to for that.
That makes sense. Control Blood is definitely always your go-to. I know that for a fact.
Yes, it is. But Fenrir's good too, dude.
Fenrir is good too.
Super good. Okay, my opponent will never have a board. All right, with the way I would build the deck, they would never have it.
I'm like more Aya than you are right now. I would lean on Haven right now. I think Haven's great at the moment, and I think it's severely underplayed. Underplayed.
No, I agree with you. I think Haven is very good right now, especially with the list that we've both been playing for the last couple of days.
Maybe you bring PDK, Haven, and Control Blood. Maybe that's like the spice.
My lineup. That would be my lineup. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Underwear wins this game.
Yeah. We haven't made mention of much here, but 20-0, neutral forest, Underwear, getting in there, deviate. My horse. No, my kingdom. For my horse.
Dumpstered.
Moment of silence for Neutral Forest.
Moment of silence.
Rest in peace. Press F to pay your respects. But what that means is Underwear is coming back for Season 3, and he will be the first and only player so far who has competed in Season 2 and is qualified back into Season 3. So congratulations to him. But we have that one final match left standing. It's going to be Underwear versus Eplicus, which is really, really cool. Great to see Eplicus feeling a slightly different deck than his teammates with that mid-shadow. Was able to make that work for him, and mid-shadow has always been solid, even when it kind of fell out of favor, still very effective, and Eplicus demonstrated that in the Underwear, kind of running what would be the alternate, I would assume, to the 3 crafts that you would choose. So we're going to butt heads and see who can take that first place finish. With DVA kind of getting pushed out of the tournament, maybe a different deck lineup would help, but how much do you think that changed mulligan, or rather kind of ban strategy, would have really helped DVA, or would you just not even want to deal with that? Would you have preferred he came out with a different set of decks?
I still think I would have gone with my original thought. Let PDK through and ban Midsword, and then I have my Midsword to battle with, and then I also have a better chance. Just like we've seen how bad it does against Sword and against Rune. We saw it several times, and if you're on Deviate, you're watching these games, maybe you're even talking to your teammates a little bit about what's going on, and it's just like, change it up. Change it, please. Just like do something different. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what else to say beyond that. Like, why keep running into a wall if you know you can't break through it?
Right.
Well,
should have brought a sledgehammer.
That's right.
Need a little more firepower behind the neutral forest, but that's gonna mean DVA has to wait until next week before he can make it. What a heartbreaker! So close yet so far. make sure you guys go to @Shadowverse Game on Twitter, and that will give you all the updates on what's happening with Shadowverse Open, as well as what's happening at things like TwitchCon or PAX Australia, or anything that is a Shadowverse event or announcement. We'll go there on that social media platform. So, if you guys want to keep up to date, that's your place. We're there on Twitter too. We're always watching. We're watching like hawks because we're social media fiends. We're just on there 24/7, listening to every single thing you say. But with that,
We
if you were
are
following
the Library of Congress.
if you were following Twitter, then you would know that we have a special guest coming on today for the last match of the day, last match of the broadcast. A very special person to the community and a participant in Season 2 of the Shadowverse Open. He will be taking the place of Aya Senpai, and that would be Gengar. That being said, that means that, oh no, Exodium. You know what? Exodium's giving people the boot all day. Yeah, I think it's getting to his head. I think Exodium's liking this spot where he can just kick people out.
You know what, man?
I don't like it. I don't like it.
You know what, man? We're gonna have some work.
Oh no! Somebody research what happened to the care package.
You might-
Exodium, start preparing yourself. Words are good. Words are going to be
All
exchanged.
right, quick.
Sticks and
yes.
stones may break
Yes,
my bones, but words
yes,
can
it will
hurt.
be fun later today. Yes.
All right. Well, Aya Senpai, how did you feel about the tournament today? Anything you want to say before we part ways?
Don't play neutral for it. Don't play neutral for it. Don't play neutral for it.
Okay, that's enough, Aya. Get him out of here. Get this man off the desk. All right, we're gonna go to commercials, and when we come back, Gengar joins us on desk. All we have to do to defeat the ultimate carrot is banish it. Hey! Whoa! No. Don't you do it? That's an heirloom. You'll pay for that. Join the fight for the Starforged Legends season of the Shadowverse Open starting October 7th. We're back. We are back. And now we've swapped out that caster who has been bad-mouthing for us all day long.
Yeah.
Couldn't
Get that guy
stand
out
him
of here.
anymore.
Bad.
And we have joining us, Gengar. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing really good. Hi guys.
I'm so glad to have you back on desk. I know it was probably kind of real short notice, I think. I think we kind of reached out a little bit late, but super glad you had the time to come out, watch the broadcast, and kind of hang out with us. How's it been? How's the expansion been? It's been a while since we spoke, I feel like.
The expansion's been good. I'm enjoying it. The meta's diverse. Everything's great. The tournament scene has a lot of different decks that we haven't seen before, and overall, yeah, it's been a really good expansion.
Okay, Gengar, here's a question. So I believe the last time we talked, which was kind of like in the middle of Season 2-ish, you were talking about how you kind of just left your old team, EXG, and have just been kind of, hanging out, being the rodents, so to speak. Are you still teamless?
Yes, I am still teamless.
Oh!
No friends, nothing at all.
No
No
friends?
friends.
Can I be
No
your friend?
life.
Yes, you can, Rainy.
Yes. Gengar has one
You've got
friend.
one now. You've got one.
I'm not a very good friend, to be honest, though. So I'm sorry for that. But, teamless, then what do you have to say about today's tournament? Seeing disaster just all over the
Yes.
place in the bracket.
Wow. It's a shock to me, to anyone watching. I'm pretty sure, even to them, the players playing, there's no way they expected that to happen.
Yeah, they were obviously very successful. Is this something that would interest you? Is a World Grand Prix something that interests you in terms of kind of associating yourself with a team? Do you think that's going to help you at all, or do you feel like you're going to stick to your guns and keep going with how you're going?
Being teamless has its downsides. Mostly, just not being able to talk to someone. That's the main thing. But as a solo player, you don't have to do it. You can just work at your own pace. Yeah.
No team meetings, no,
No.
hazing.
No
nothing
hazing?
like that.
That's
Yeah,
what happens
right.
in Shadow Nexus, does it? The hazing. We're gonna slowly start
We
uncovering.
don't talk about that, okay?
Shadow Nexus is a sketchy organ. We're gonna need to start an investigation into Shadow Nexus operations and see what happens there. But
Please do help. Help.
blink twice. If you Let's review the bracket and get some of Gengar's thoughts on these last two players here, Eplicus and Underwear. First question, of course, are you familiar with either of these players, and what do you think of their play today or their play historically? Is there anything interesting of note in your eyes, Gengar?
These two players, I've known them for a while. Eplicus, Underwear, I talked to them a lot actually, and I know they're both solid. And I know that Dis has been practicing like their butt off, so it's something.
Yeah, that and certainly their performance is something jaw-dropping, so to speak. But their game is ready. They're about to jump in. Now, let's talk about these few decks that Disaster has seemed to come to the conclusion are what they should bring in the tournament: the Mid Sword, the PDK Dragon, and then something else. In Eplicus's case, it's going to be Mid Shadow. In Underwear's case, it's going to be Dirt Rune. How do you feel about these deck setups? And I know, Gengar, you have a specific playstyle that you really enjoy, but where do you think you fit into this picture? Do you agree with some of these deck choices? What would you have done knowing what decks were brought today?
I don't think I would have done any of the things that Dis has done. They've created their own meta with mid-range sword, Dirt Rune, and all this other stuff, trying to like beat this aggro meta that NA is probably known for at the moment. So them bringing all this is really refreshing in the tournament scene, and I'm surprised. So
interesting. So I seem to recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you are a very strong supporter of the Seraph life. Is that true? Do you confirm or deny?
To a certain extent, yeah.
To a certain extent. Care to elaborate on what
answer.
extent this is?
Okay, if people hate Seraph, I'm not associated with them.
There we
People
go.
love it, and
There we go.
I'll support it all the way.
Always a friend of everybody else, never an enemy. That's a really good way to do
That's
it.
why he has
probably
no
why
friends.
Yeah, that's why you have no friends, no team. No friends, you have no enemies. You're just a soulless individual. You're very much like me. I think we would make
Soulless.
very good.
Ouch.
We would make very good friends. But we're jumping into this game. Giger, help us understand some of the early game and the mulligan strategy for these two players, especially knowing that they're both just constantly banning Dragon. It's going to start out with Rune versus Shadow. What, in your eyes, is the most important kind of notes for each of these players in this matchup?
They have to early game the most important part in this matchup, and transitioning from that early game to mid game definitely be like a thing to look out for.
Yeah, and I would say classically, we've seen this matchup at least last season quite a bit, where Dirt Rune had an extreme advantage against Mid Shadow. Now with Saris and Blade Fiend added to the mix, do you think that Mid Shadow has a chance now against Burn Rune, or do you think Burn Rune is still a superior deck in this matchup?
Yeah, with those additions to this Shadow, they definitely are favored. I would think this matchup.
Oh, you think actually not even but favored now because of the new cards?
Yes.
Interesting.
As long as you
Okay.
stop their board early game, you could just blow them out of the game with all the storm.
Interesting. Oh, Gengar, I actually have one trivia fact for you that you might not know. So my very first competitive tournament was an EXG tournament back in January, maybe at the end of December. I can't really remember right now, but you were one of my first opponents, and everybody in the tournament was speaking, Gengar's the best guy in the tournament. You played this off-the-wall Shadow deck with like Cerberus and Lord of Flies and all this other crazy stuff, and you actually taught me so much about playing Shadow in that game. I lost to you, and I still made top 8 in that tournament, but you were my loss. And I was like, man, all right, Gengar's the dude. I'm scared of playing Gengar now. I remember that feeling way back when. That was a good time.
I'm sorry, I don't remember people I beat.
Ooh, I like
I'm just kidding.
Spicy, my man. No, that's good. Okay, so talk to me about why do you think Saris and Blade Fiend, those cards specifically help this matchup so much?
They just control the board very well, keeping your life total high and just overall overwhelming dirt rune. They can't burn you out. They can't take the board. It's something that they can't handle, you know.
That's interesting. I like it. And Saris, of course, being probably the best new addition to Shadow. It's just a crazy good card. Just the fact that Shadow has life gain now is really strong. It's kind of like Sybil, right? It's like Shadow's Sybil. Obviously, very different type of effect, but very similar in the fact that it kind of presents this mid-game option that's really hard to deal with. So I think that's a really good insight right there. Because before this match even started, had I been casting with Aya, would have said that this would have been an easily clear matchup for Dirt Rune. But I guess I hadn't thought about it with the new cards as much.
Yeah, for sure. Like the dynamic of Shadow right now is they have the same exact tools that they did last expansion, but are empowering the weaknesses they have.
Mm-hmm.
So
very good. I really like the card advantage that they have Engine to draw into their late game now, because before they only had a few good late game options. Now they have a whole suite of them. So I think you're absolutely correct.
I don't know. Let's see what happens. Right now, Shadow is looking like they have a really strong edge against this.
They haven't gotten any damage in yet, and they do have a Death's Breath after this Master Mage Levi does clear the board. So I think that it is looking pretty good. But Evolution Orbs have been being saved this entire game, so both players actually have a lot of room to breathe in this game.
And one card for look out for Rune is Oz. That could definitely swing the tide of this really fast.
Absolutely. So you made mention at the beginning of the match that you wouldn't have gone anywhere near these lineups. What would your lineup been today if you had to play?
Somewhere around combo, either Forest or D-Ship, or even both. Something like that fits my playstyle a lot, yeah.
Okay, so even though it could have been an aggro-centric metagame that you're going into, you're just like, whatever, caution to the wind, we're going combo.
Insight. I have a little bit insight of this, and they told me that they were going to bring this deck, so I don't know, maybe.
I see a little insider information, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, you know what? In real life, if you do something like that, you might get arrested. In Shadowverse, that's just how you win tournaments sometimes.
Exactly.
I love that Underwear kept on to this Master Mage Levy. He knows that he can trade board advantage. He has plenty of time right now. He's not really under any pressure, and like just saving it for a big advantage turn, just to try to prevent an Ektar board, is what my guess would be.
An Ektar or a Death's Breath, even.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it will be able to clear much of it, especially if he doesn't pre-evo anything, which I don't think you would ever really in this universe. Pre-evo one of those zombies. But he could have the foresight to do that.
Yeah, Underwear's been saving that card for a while now.
Ooh, saves it even longer. Playing the Saris, I like this.
I like
this.
This
is like,
play
all right,
too.
Do something. Use one of your evos, please.
Don't forget.
Ooh, this is extremely bad for Underwear after this turn. Death's Breath is just gonna become a big threat.
And this goes a long way to show you how good these players really are. Like, they didn't overextend. They saved their resources for exactly the moment they think they needed to. The thing that you were saying, though, Shadow, it just has so much more. Like, it has the board fills now, the extra life gain from the Saris, that Blade Fiend can come down at any time to protect his board while also dealing with a follower. Just in a very good position right now.
And without all that said, Oz could still turn the game around.
Of course. Oz is always the lifeblood of this deck, and it's probably one of the most fun cards to actually watch go off, because it's always just like this. Okay, we're rolling the dice. What do we get? Have you had any crazy Wizardess of Oz turns yourself? Like, is there any like one that stands out that you're just like, oh man, this is like the high roller's dream?
Probably Double Dance of Death is every Dirt Rune's dream.
Okay. Not like Dance of Death with Mutagenic Bolt, just Double Dance. It's like that's where you like. That's how you like to party. Okay.
Sounds average. It's about average outcome.
About average. I wish that my Wizardess of Oz is on average double dance. That would be pretty good. That would be pretty good. We were actually talking about Dance of Death and its use outside of it, more specifically in the neutral forest deck. And I was actually talking about how he didn't like it in the neutral forest deck because it's really slow, especially without Wizardess of Oz. What do you think about Dance of Death in the meta right now?
For a class like neutral forest being board centric, using 5 play points isn't what you want to do, and it doesn't have like cards like Oz that could just reduce it. So I don't like it.
Is there any other deck besides Rune that you might find room for? Like any other aggro decks even? Like, do you think it's even necessary now?
Yeah, for sure. Some decks will run it like maybe a tech against Dragon or Sword, maybe Tsubaki. Like, Dance of Death is a weird card where it can fit in a lot of decks, but some decks don't need it as much as others.
Can you see yourself actually playing it in another deck though? Not just like theory crafting, like, no, I have a deck, I run Dance of Death in it, and it's not Rune. As
of now, no. You put me on the spot, so.
Of course, I gotta put you on the spot. I gotta know the real answers, man. All right, so talk to us about this next turn coming up. Eplicus, what's his best line of play here? How does he just ensure the win? I mean, of course he's like super favored here, but like, is there anything that you're thinking about that Rune can do on the comeback? Like, what do you present here?
I like White King into Ector is a really super strong and aggressive play. But if he wants to play the safe route, Death Breath is also a really strong option as well, setting up for the Ector next turn.
Perfect. And even that being said, even Blade Fiend plus, anything else in hand, even Chimera plus Lyra, I mean, like, he really can't go wrong with playing any set of cards in his hand at the moment, considering he's got 6 and his opponent's got zero cards in hand.
Honestly, I think he could just play anything and still win the game.
Yep. I think he's in a pretty good spot here. Now, the only consideration, obviously, is if Wizardess of Oz does come off the top, or is there anything that you have to play around? But at this point, I don't think that you can actually do anything with the spells off the top to come back here.
Yeah, I think this game is already over.
I'm excited. This is Eplicus' first tournament. Now that he's already made it, like, just accentuating that fact with he actually won 2. Like, Underwear's already in. He's been in a season. And now Eplica's just coming through with Mid Shadow. And I was told, actually, before this tournament from a lot of players that they thought Mid Shadow was actually a really bad inclusion for today's tournaments. How do you feel about Mid Shadow as a whole right now? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad?
Mid Shadow is always a tournament deck. As consistent as you get. Like, on ladder, however, it's a different story. So me seeing Mid Shadow in tournament only isn't a surprising thing. It's pretty solid.
Well, talk to me about why it's not so good on ladder. Like, what makes it better in a tournament versus on the ladder?
So on ladder, everyone's just trying to grind as fast as they can. So mostly you would see is aggro. As Mid Shadow, you could deal with it, but it's not like ideal. It takes forever. The games are slow. But however, in tournament, you play to win, and it doesn't matter how long you play. It matters if you get that win. So.
That's true. So you heard it here first, guys. And Gengar, I know you've been a supporter for Shadow for a long time, even when people thought it was terrible. So big ups to Gengar. Play some Shadow. Let's go. I like Shadow too. Shadow's super fun for me to play. I don't know. The card draw that you get in Shadow now just kind of beats out a lot of flavor across the board for me now. I like drawing a bunch of cards, and it does it better than Runecraft does at the moment. Except for Wizardess, but I just love drawing cards.
May the dark clouds be dispersed.
All right, so talk to us about this matchup. Do you think that, I think that being second in this matchup is actually better with the extra Evo point. Do you think there's any difference to that? Do you think having the first Albert is the biggest thing? Like, what do you think about this matchup?
This matchup, yeah, I agree with you. Going second is extremely better. The extra card, the extra option, and also the extra evolve, could potentially just win you the game.
What do you think about this Mars White Paladin shenanigans? Have you thought of this yet? Have you been impressed by what it's been doing? Like, are you afraid of it now?
I see the disc players scream with these decks, and they've shown that these decks have a spot in the meta as a competitive deck. And like it's just everything it does is so well. It draws well. It has commanders. It has combos. It could stop aggro. Like every of these factors are what makes it a great deck.
And it's a weird combination of cards too. Like it's not your standard mid. It's very different departure from what I mean. Like it's got, like you said, combo cards in it with round table assembly, and just like Mars plus White Paladin period, or Mars plus pretty much everything in the deck as a combo. I mean, we even talked about Quick Blader and its inclusion in the deck. You normally don't see it in a deck like this, especially it already has another 1-drop in Staircase, but with Mars, it becomes this 1 play point 2/2 on defense essentially that just it's really good value.
Yeah, it's insane. And like what we're seeing here about the White Paladin is controlling the board with the Staircase even for Underwear, and this is going to be a hard board for Eplicus to deal with.
He does have the White Paladin on the rebound though. He also has access to Council of Card Knights. So I don't think this game is going to be decided so easily yet. But we do see a round table assembly on Dis Underwear's side of things. So even if this board gets cleared, there's always the backup chance of Mars White Paladin yet again. And this is exactly what we saw the last game. I like this back and forth, and like last time, the person with more evos won. So we'll see if it plays out the same way this game.
Look was thinking hard about his turn.
Majesty is impatient.
I like this plan.
Yeah, I like it too. Presents bigger board, more power, more toughness essentially, so harder to trade into, and then you can fall back on White Paladin if you ever need to. All right, Gengar, so I'm going to ask you a very specific and targeted question. You ready for this?
All right.
Do you have a fun deck and or meta-breaking deck that might be a secret that you play on the ladder right now that A, you either have a lot of fun with, or B, you think it's just like the business and nobody's playing it right now?
I actually do have a deck that no one has seen before, and I've been playing on ladder a lot, trying to refine it.
So
it's not as exciting as you think. Shadow.
What class is it? It's a Shadow. Okay, is it Atomy?
Shadow. Maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Your Majesty.
Just have to find out. Am I bringing it?
Oh, how am I gonna find out? Do you stream?
Your Majesty.
Maybe. I'll see what if I feel confident to show it to some people.
You know what, Gengar? Keep me on Discord. You let me know when you're ready to share this deck to the world, and then I will tweet it out for you. I will make sure that people know about the Gengar meta-defining deck.
All right. That sounds good.
Perfect. All right, so lines of play. Let's talk about this. Alwita's Command comes out. I actually like this line of play. This sets up for increasing damage, obviously, and setting up a good board with a ward to protect your small followers. If you're Underwear right now, what are you doing? What do you think?
Probably, hopefully, go for the Mars play with the White Paladin. Try to swing the board back in your favor. All the other plays don't seem as strong as
Is there any consideration to that not, like, say you get double Mars here, and you just don't get the White Paladin? We haven't seen it yet, but I believe it's possible. I think he might be in a bad spot. So I kind of like just going for the straightforward removal here. He does leave the Bane though, which is really tricky to deal with.
This play is fine. Doesn't have no risk, but Eplicus could just keep flooding the board, and Underwear doesn't have a board to like fight this.
Right. All right, let's see what the staircase draws. So this actually kind of guarantees a little bit. No, did not hit the Mars. Okay, so it is possible.
This is extremely bad.
I actually kind of like playing the Veteran Lancer here after you Evo and trade, because I just want to make sure that I'm not taking no more damage for as long as I possibly can.
That is exactly what he's gonna do, I think.
Ooh, okay. Okay. That's not a bad play either. Obviously gives him more options, just more know of what he can do.
This is a very back and forth game.
Yeah, I really like this mirror. I think it really has like really good claim to how consistent this deck is to not only see the same game play out the same way game after game, it's that even in these mirror matchups, the same cards are good, the same cards are played against each other. There's not like a lot of variation. And I think that speaks volumes about a deck when you see this, is just how consistent and how like potent it really is.
Yeah.
All right, so we're getting to an end game where I think Underwear is at an extreme disadvantage. He does have more cards, but that Evo point has not been used by Eplicas, and we're going into the Albert turn. So every single turn from here on out, he's got to pretty much keep the board clear. The only problem with that is that he's out of White Paladins, and that Gino has last words put 2/1/1s into play. So even if he can clear the board as it stands, those 2/1/1s will be left over to finish the game off.
Yeah, and it looks like it's over. This is just game. The Albert next turn.
I think so, because I think the only other play here is Veteran Lancer Evo into one of the 1/1s, and then Bane still exists for the ward.
And wow, the extra card and the extra Evo didn't matter this game at all.
Eplicas,
I'll save you all.
absolutely insane run. I gotta hand it to Eplicas. He did so well this tournament. First major tournament. Goes all the way to first place. Solidifies his position. Are you scared of Eplicas now? Is Eplicas one of these players where you're like, you know what? This is a new player, but he's pretty scary.
I don't underestimate any opponent I play against.
Good.
It would
Good
just
answer.
make me even more mad to lose if I did.
Good answer. So
Even
Eplicas.
more mad to lose.
I
There
got
it
a
is.
clap for Eplicas. Good man. Good
Wins
man,
the
Eplicas.
tournament on winner's end. First place finish. First time he's gotten a high placing in the NGE qualifiers. Makes it all the way to the top. And he is in Season 3. Of course, so is Underwear coming back again. But that was a very fantastic performance from Eplicas. Seems like the preparation for Disaster really helped out. Gengar being the third place finisher in the Season 2 playoffs. Out of all the players that you've seen kind of qualifying into the Shadowverse Open, kind of what is your feeling about the pace of the meta? Do you feel like this is something that's kind of you're comfortable with? Did you feel more comfortable in previous metas? How are you feeling the game is for you at this point in time?
I don't know. A part of me says I'm confident. A part of me says that I'm scared. This meta, as we've seen, there's different decks that are coming out every single tournament we have. So I don't know how to answer that.
Well, there is certainly a lot of ambiguity, and that probably means that it's going to be a new territory and you're just going to have to find your space. But let's kind of close out the day and look at how the results have kind of fit themselves in. Eplicas, first place finish. He will be the winner of the qualifier for Week 2 for North America. Underwear coming up second. DV8 had a fantastic run at third, and Belaine will be fourth. Congratulations to all the players that made it this far. Unfortunately for DV8 and Belaine, they're going to have to go until next week and go through an entire tournament again if they want a chance to make it into the season. But so many Disaster players coming through, and one CPV player by the name of Lekka, and Fantasy as well was just the round before, so just coming up a little bit short. But hopefully next week North America will take all these learnings from Disastra and convert them into something else, and we'll see again some of these other teams challenging them.
I want to see an anti-Disastra team formed, and I want them to have their own team tournament, and then I want to see them in the top 8. And I want this to be the community of everybody else that's not Disastra.
Well, Gengar, do you feel like you are a particular individual who is capable of leadership, would you say?
Ooh. The Gengar army returns. Here we go.
I thought about it. I thought about it a lot.
He's thought about it? Wow.
No promises though. No promises.
Oh my gosh. You heard it here first. Everybody clip that moment right now. You heard Gengar talk about the bubbling of a new team coming up. That would be really exciting. I'd be very... You know what you should do, Gengar? If you make a new team, you should just get all the commentators and streamers on your team. And you'll just be... And the way that we'll control the Shadowverse world is we'll just use propaganda. Everybody
right.
who has a voice in the community will just tell lies the whole time. We'll just...
Like, Disastra just won this tournament, but we could be like, Disastra, they didn't do so well today, they didn't really show up that much, and so, like, we can kind of spread whatever we want to spread, that's how it is.
Do your moral fibers allow you to do such a thing, Gengar?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. We're on the same
Yes.
page.
Perfect.
Gengar is our
We
friend
found
for
our new
sure.
leader.
Gengar is our friend for sure. All right, if you guys want to sign up for the Shadowverse Open or have a chance in the Starforged Legends season of the Shadowverse Open, or you want to participate in the World Grand Prix, your last chance is next week. Go to shadowverse.nge.io to sign up. If you take the top 2 spot in the qualifier and get put into Season 3, you are then invited to compete in the Contenders Cup. And the top 3 of that tournament will go to the World Grand Prix, $120,000 on the line. Gengar, if you were to go compete in the Contenders Cup and make it to Japan, is that something that you're really looking forward to? Is that something you're really excited for? Are you preparing for that? How does the World Grand Prix fit into your kind of mindset?
I want to win. I want to win that. I want to go to Japan. I want to win and put NA on the map.
Put North America on
Perfect.
the map. Gengar is a representative of North America and did very well in the last season, and hopefully we'll get to see you in Japan. Who do you think is your toughest competition to make it there? Is there anybody in your mind? You said you don't disrespect any of your opponents, but is there somebody who you are extremely worried about?
Underwear. Underwear. He's beaten me every time I played against him. So
Interesting. That is
Mortal
an interesting
enemies.
statistic. And you were actually, you had a, I can't remember how the round robin played out last season, but the score lines were pretty close, and you actually ended up on the top of your group just in kind of a weird tiebreak situation, if I remember correctly. Was that like Underwear's defeating of you put you in that scenario?
yep, yes. he did.
Ah, dang it! Well, you know, there's some methods that you can utilize to dismantle Underwear. All that takes is some subterfuge, some covert operations.
Or
You should
just a
just
clean
take
pair of
the underwear
scissors.
off.
Yeah.
Oh god.
I'm
Gengar.
sorry.
I don't know what's happening anymore. That's okay. It's always a joy having you on broadcast, and it's such fun getting to speak with you and just kind of talking about nothing. But are there any kind of final words or thoughts or things you want to put out there, or say to your fans or to your friends and family?
Thank you, NGE, for hosting these tournaments. It's been a blast. You guys having me on, you guys hosting tournaments, giving prizes, having a place where everyone competitively could go and have some fun with everyone else. So, and also thank you guys, Team Distra for making this tournament awesome. And they've done some things.
They've done. They certainly have. Okay,
They've
Gengar.
shaken the mountain.
This is what I've gotten in the habit of doing every broadcast, but since you are our special guest, I'm going to leave it on your shoulders to say goodbye to the viewers and close out the show. So here you go. The floor is yours. Whatever you want to do to close out the show, here it is. We're watching intently.
Chair spin.
A chair spin. All right. Goodbye, guys. I think my microphone wire is going to get tangled. See you next week.